The first flakes of late autumn snow drifted across the stone courtyards of River Run, as Caitlin Stark watched the cold gray river swirl beyond the battlements. She stood alone, wrapped in a wolf-skin cloak that smelled of pine and the damp ride southward, her red hair blown about her shoulders in restive strands. Below, campfires of the northern host flickered like embers fallen from the sky, thousands strong yet restless, caged by the uneasy peace of guest, right extended by Lord Walder Frey. In the pale dawn, geese cried over the water and vanished into the mist, and Caitlin found herself envying their freedom. Robb had dared trust the crossing once more, because honor demanded it, because bread and salt had been offered, because the twin towers of the crossing loomed stark and unavoidable on the march to Winterfell. Yet honor in Westeros had grown thin as a parchment shield. She felt it each time she knelt in prayer, beseeching the old gods who answered only with wind among the leaves of distant godswoods. Footfalls scraped stone behind her. "My lady?" It was Edmure. Cheeks ruddy, beard still damp from the pitcher of ice water he splashed across his face each morning. "Sir Brynden says the riders returned from the King's Road. No banners. Could be Frey outriders. Could be worse." Caitlin's breath clouded. "Send scouts." Quietly. She looked south, where the road bent into a copse of leafless birch. "Have you word from—" "I would not speak of ravens here," Edmure cautioned, eyes shifting to the walls. "Too many ears, Lady Caitlin. Too many eyes." Caitlin pressed fingers to her lips in silent apology, though she needed no reminder. Walder Frey had eyes like warts sprouting in every corridor. "Trust," Robb declared, "must be granted if the war were ever to end." "Trust," Caitlin answered in her heart, "must be weighed like a dagger before one dares the grip." That night, beneath banners tinged crimson by torchlight, the river wind carried the scent of hog roasted in apple glaze, ale frothing from casks, minstrels tuning lutes in high galleries. The twins were dressing for marriage. Robb Stark, king in the north, intended to win back the allegiance he had betrayed by wedding Jane Westerling. Lord Walder had demanded poetry of contrition and a crown of sweet promises for his daughter Rosalind. And Rosalind would have Robb's uncle Edmure Tully instead. It was a farce of honor stitched with threadbare courtesy, yet none dared refuse. Caitlin descended the stone stair to the great hall. The banners of House Frey, two blue towers on gray, dangled from rafters thick with cobweb, while the dire wolf of Stark and leaping trout of Tully stood dwarfed at the dais. Servants flitted, faces pale as uncooked dough, their eyes never meeting hers for longer than a heartbeat. She noted every freckled boy and stooped washerwoman, wondering which carried knives beneath their linens. "Mother." Robb emerged from between pillars, young and tall, in a doublet of black leather, sewn with studs of ironwood. Gray wind's pelt ringed his shoulders, the wolf's muzzle clasped by silver at his breast. He looked older than 2 moons past. Older, yet still heartbreakingly her boy. "Uncle Brynden means to ride the perimeter one last time. Take 30 shields," Caitlin urged. "Walder's oath is thin ice over deep water." Robb's brow furrowed. "We ride as guests. Guests whose liege once broke faith." She touched his sleeve. "Do not mistake Lord Walder's smile for safe harbor." From a recess near the hearth, a voice rasped. "Harbor?" "The crossing is a toll bridge run by a craven ferryman." Out strode Sir Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, his chain shirt dull beneath a cloak the color of wet slate. In his eyes burned embers of contempt. "I say we march north at first light, wedding or no. Young Rosalind may find kinder suitors than Lord Walder's chosen goat." Edmure, already deep in wine, bristled. "A goat, is it?" "A Tully no sheep, uncle." "Menems." The Blackfish ignored him. He fixed Robb with a stare. "We have news. Ravens intercepted near Seaguard. Frey riders have scouted our flanks for days, counting heads, measuring pikes. Walder means more than music tomorrow." Robb's jaw tightened. He would not dare break guest right under mine own banner. Would he not? Brynden's laugh was sandpaper. "Walder Frey is older than the wall and colder. There is no right he will not sell to the highest bidder. Word is..." Ser Ryman rides for Casterly Rock. The Lannisters will pay in red gold for direwolf heads. Then, Robb glanced at Grey Wind, the beast poised near a pillar, ears twitching. The direwolf's low growl rumbled across the rushes strewn on the floor. Caitlin took her son's hand, whispering, "If we must break bread, be sure the loaves are ours." Her meaning was clear. Their own men must stand watch at every door, taste every cup. But there was a deeper current beneath her words, one she dared not voice. For behind Bryndon's warning lay secret hope. Hope born on a raven's wing 7 nights earlier, penned in a hand she had once traced in candlelight. "I ride beneath shadows. Keep faith. A." The letter had come from Eastwatch by the sea, its seal broken, the parchment smudged by seawater brine. E? Who else but Eddard Stark wrote thus? Yet Ned had been beheaded on the steps of Baelor's Sept. She had wept until her eyes cramped with salt. And still, the script was his, the curve of the capital, the downward slant, a ghost's ink. She kept the scrap near her heart, afraid to share it even with Robb for fear of cruelty or false hope. But tonight, as Vial sang of maiden fair and tumbleweed nights, she watched the doors, expecting at any moment the impossible. Ned Stark stepping from shadow, gray in the beard, sword in hand, to claim vengeance for House Stark. The night before the wedding, thunder crawled across the twins, lightning stitching the sky with white fire. In the barracks yard, the shields of northern guards rattled on racks. Horses stamped and whickered, uneasy in their stables. Yet something else stirred beyond mortal hearing. Grey Wind scented it first, ears pricked, fur bristling, then bolted from Robb's tent into the storm. Robb pursued, cloak flapping, boots splashing mud. Grey Wind. But the direwolf vanished between wagons, following a scent no man could ken. Robb cursed the darkness and gave chase, sword half drawn, as lightning flashed again, revealing a silhouette beyond the outer palisade, tall and cloaked, the direwolf circling at his feet, tail low. Robb's heart hammered. Who goes there? The figure raised empty hands. A father who failed his children, yet hopes to see them whole. The voice was hoarse, older, yet unmistakable. Ned. The name tore from Robb's throat, raw as winter wind. Thunder drowned the reply. But Robb splashed through the ditch, climbed the slippery bank, and stood face to face with Eddard Stark. Rain streaked Ned's hair, now salted with gray, his jaw lined and harder than Robb remembered. Yet the eyes were the same granite, tempered by sorrow. How? Robb could form no other words. The stories of Baelor's Sept, the heads upon spikes, viscera etched deep. But here was his father, alive. "There is no time," Ned said, clasping Robb's shoulders. Wild joy broke within the young king, but Ned's grip was iron. "You must listen, son. Walder Frey plots murder beneath his roof." Robb swallowed. "We feared as much. Fear's not enough. Plan." Ned glanced to the ramparts. "He means to strike at the feast. Crossbowmen in the minstrel's loft. Spearmen behind the trestle boards. The ale will be laced with essence of nightshade to slow your limbs. 7 hells." Robb's thoughts raced. "How know you this?" "I rode in with the mummers' troop 2 days past, disguised. The Lord of the Crossing boasted of lion's gold, in exchange for northern blood." Ned's hand closed about Robb's sword hilt, steadying trembling fingers. "But we will turn his snare upon him." Lightning again, thunder boomed. In its rumble, Robb heard the voice of his ancestors. "Tell me what you need, father." 12 good archers, each sworn wolf, to hide in the loft before dawn. Tully spears to guard the doors. "And trust, Robb? Trust that I have not returned from death to watch my kin fall a second time." Robb's eyes stung with rain and tears. "You have my trust, and my sword." "Keep your sword." Ned's mouth quirked. "I have ice again." He drew the greatsword from beneath his cloak. The blade dulled from long months of hiding, but still broad as a man's hand. The rippled Valyrian steel drank the lightning like river water drinks the moon. "When the musicians play, the Rains of Castamere, that will be our cue. Frey men will think themselves lions, We shall be winter come for them. Grey Wind paced behind Ned, rumbling approval. Robb felt the wolf's fury mirrored in his marrow. For Bran and Rickon, for the north aflame, for the banners of Bolton treachery. Tomorrow would bleed with southern fear. Dawn seeped pink through high windows, as Robb convened his captains in a damp cellar beneath the east tower. By guttering candlelight, he relayed Ned's plan. Some scoffed. Others whispered that Ice Whites had tricked their king. Then the Blackfish descended the stair, eyes blazing. "I saw Lord Eddard with mine own eyes," Brynden reported. "He rides beneath shadows indeed, but he rides." Mutterings gave way to grim purpose. Great John Umber slapped the flats of two axes together. The old wolf returns, and all the pups bare teeth. Let us feast on Frey hearts." By midday, riders set forth with forged passes, disguised as Frey outriders, to seize the watchtowers along the Green Fork. When dusk bled purple across the Twins, those towers lit signal fires. 3 quick bursts, answering a lantern, flashed twice from the hayloft of the eastern barn. The net closed. Within the great hall, Walder Frey waddled between tables, leering at Rosalind's tears as she knelt before the septon. Crossbows hung hidden in draped tapestries above. Frey sergeants stood lined behind barrels. Outside, the rain had halted. Thunder growled distant across the foothills. Catelyn sat beside Robb at the high table, her eyes scanning rafters while her hands broke bread. She did not eat. Edmure, red-cheeked and flushed with wine, kissed Rosalind's hand as the vows were spoken. Violins began a lilting tune of peace and summer harvest. Then, the first notes of the Rains of Castamere slithered from the gallery. A hush swept the benches. Walder Frey's thin lips stretched into a skeletal grin. Catelyn saw crossbowmen step forward, bows cocked upon the rails above. Yet at that same instant, arrows hissed from behind dusty tapestries opposite. Northern shafts punched through quilted jerkins. Frey bowmen toppled, bolts loosed wild. Screams erupted as the ambush within ambush exploded. Robb sprang atop the table, brandishing steel. Winter fell. His shout rang as spearmen in fish-scale cloaks surged from side doors, skewering Frey guards. Great John Umber vaulted benches to cleave a man from collarbone to hip. Wine goblets shattered, cakes toppled. Minstrels dropped lutes in panic only to find Blackwood archers knocking arrows at their breasts. Lord Walder stood frozen, jaw agape, before ducking behind a pillar. But Catelyn had leapt already, knife in hand, skirts hiked, chasing the old spider. She spied him hobble toward a service archway, with only one scrawny grandson to guard him. Her blade found the boy's throat. No hesitation, and she pushed past into the corridor of narrow slits of arrow loops. There, a shadow loomed. Ned Stark stepped from the gloom. Ice balanced over his shoulder. Blood flecked his brow. Cat. Her knees buckled. She would have wept but for Walder's snarling curse as he found himself caught between them. Ned's eyes never left hers, yet his sword pivoted. Lightning quick. The pommel struck Walder's temple. The old lord crumpled like rotten wood. "Alive," Ned murmured. Binding Frey's wrists with the baldric torn from the boy, Catelyn had slain. "We need him breathing." She touched his cheek. The last time she'd felt his skin, it had been cold marble in the Sept of Winterfell, before he rode south to King's Landing. Now warmth and sweat and blood pulsed under her fingertips. "I knew you lived," she whispered. "My heart would not let you die. Nor mine you." He pressed forehead to hers, a heartbeat only. Then distant horns sounded. To the yard. The south tower surrenders. They emerged onto a balcony overlooking chaos. Frey banners pulled down. Torches flung into haycarts to flame against stone. Yet the northern host held formation. Shields locked. Archers atop the battlements keeping Lannister-clad Sellswords pinned at the outer gate. Brynden Tully rode by with a column of mounted spears, saluting Ned with a raised fist. Robb strode up the stair, Grey Wind at his side, cheeks spattered red, but eyes shining. "Lord Frey is taken." Ned answered. "Alive, broken, and fettered." Robb laughed. A boy's laughter, pure winter sunlight after endless night. He embraced his father, leather to chain, wolf skin to direwolf pelt. "The North remembers," he vowed, tears unashamed in his voice. "And the Red Wedding will feed those memories for 1,000 years, but as our triumph, not our tomb." When dawn broke, the twins flew new banners. Direwolf, Trout, and Direwolf again. Walder Frey was paraded in chains before his weeping daughters and bastard sons. The old lord spat curses until Great John Umber gagged him with the torn strings of a lute. In the Lord's solar, Ned met quietly with Robb, Catelyn, Brynden, and a trail-scarred ranger in black who waited in the corner. Benjen Stark returned from beyond the wall with tales of dead men walking and a kingdom unprepared. They spoke long and low. Of Bolton betrayal, of Karstark wrath, of Manderley fleets raising white sails in secret. They spoke of dire wolves howling in every wood, of grey kraken swirling off the western coast, and of a boy at Winterfell, Bran, who dreamed of ravens with 3 eyes. At last Ned sheathed ice and looked upon his children gathered, Robb tall, Sansa still captive far to the south but hopeful, Arya a shadow lost between wars, Bran a crippled seer, Rickon wild as his direwolf. The world had broken the Starks and scattered them to winds. Yet here in the heart of treachery they had bent that wind to their purpose. Still, every victory carried its cost. He felt it in the ache of old wounds, the sleepless nights beneath false names, the ghosts of comrades fallen. War was not ended, it had only shifted course. And beyond the wall, colder storms stirred. But Ned Stark stood alive beside his son beneath a sky clearing to reveal the red sun of dawn. He breathed the crisp air of home returned, if only for an instant, and allowed himself one heartbeat of peace. "Winter is coming," he said, as he had so many times to boys now turned men. "Yet we remember the spring. Let us see the North rise again, free and whole." Robb laid his hand atop his father's. "Together, father. Together we will see it." Outside, trumpets sounded the changing of guards, and across the battlements, northern soldiers raised their voices in a song older than the kings of men. A song of grey wolves, running through white snow under the endless northern sky. Walder Frey knelt in chains upon the weirwood-draped courtyard, as Ned Stark pronounced judgment. The old man trembled. His belligerence had bled away under the stark cold of the morning. "My lord guessed right, mercy," he croaked. "Guessed right you broke in intent," Ned answered, voice clear. "Yet guessed right we kept, else you would be headless already. House Frey will pay its debts, gold to the widows of the North, safe passage for any who would leave this cursed bridge, and your person given over to the Night's Watch. Swear and you may live." Walder gnashed toothless gums, but before the sight of ice and a ring of bows he croaked his oath. Benjen Stark stepped forward to claim the prisoner. The watchers murmured at the poetry of Frey's end. Ice and snow to swallow the worm who thought himself spider. As Walder shuffled away, Edmure embraced Rosalind, who wept in relief that her lord father yet breathed. Robb clasped his uncle's shoulder. "We will honor the marriage," he told her gently. "You have no blame in your father's sins." Rosalind's thanks were soft as wind through rushes. Already the grim banners of Frey were lowered, the tower's grey stones brightening in early sun. The crossing would stand a ward of the North now, bridging not just rivers, but hopes long sundered. That evening, Ned sat in a silent chamber overlooking the river. Parchment before him, quill poised. He wrote by lamplight. "Catelyn, my heart, we have lived to see dawn beyond death. Yet shadows lengthen still. Keep our children safe. I ride east at sunrise, first to Moat Cailin, then to Winterfell, then beyond if need be, to answer the rising dark in the cold lands. Tell Bran I believe in his dreams. Tell Arya to follow the wolf within. Tell Sansa her song will yet be sung. Tell Rickon the pack endures. Hold Robb to wisdom over wrath, and trust the Blackfish's sword. I am ever your Ned." Wax dripped, sealing the letter. Outside, torches flickered along the battlements in steady rhythm, the heartbeat of a house refusing to die. Ned rose, pulled his cloak tighter, and stepped into the corridor where Grey Wind waited to escort him through the sleeping keep. The twins lay quiet now, its stones cleansed by rain and blood both. Yet from every arrow slit Ned saw the river shining, restless, forever flowing toward a sea he had never seen. Destiny flowed likewise, and men could only steer their boats while the current allowed. Somewhere far to the east, dragons stirred. In the frozen north, white walkers breathed ice into ancient swords. South, a boy king wore a metal crown too heavy for innocence. War would come again, fiercer than before. But tonight, Ned Stark walked among living sons and loyal kin, his purpose renewed. In the courtyard, a lone horn sounded, low and steady. The watch changed, but more than that, it heralded the turning of the tide, the shiver that runs through the world when fate itself shifts course. Ned lifted his gaze to the pale moon sliding between clouds. "Winter is coming," he whispered once more, though for the first time in years the words tasted not of dread, but of promise. And so began the long return of wolves to a realm that had forgotten their bite. Word spread on raven wings. The Red Wedding had birthed a red reversal. Small folk in lonely crofts sang of a Stark risen from ashes, of a Frey wrapped in chains. Lords hearing the tale weighed oaths already sworn, and wondered if the tide of southern lions might recede before northern snows. In White Harbor, Lord Wyman manderly prepared ships for war under the guise of trade. In the Dreadfort, Roose Bolton's eye twitched as rumors reached his hall, and he sharpened flaying knives with new anxiety. In Harrenhal's scorched halls, Arya Stark, still captive to a brotherhood of masks, heard whispers of her father's return and felt wildfire ignite within her heart. And across the narrow sea, in the city of Meereen, a queen with silver-gold hair listened when a northern trader swore that wolves were on the rise. Daenerys Targaryen's dragons screamed, as if they sensed frost and flame would soon meet. The North remembered, and the Game of Thrones shifted upon its axis. One ambush reversed had unspooled 1,000 threads, threads weaving together into a tapestry none yet could read. But the Starks at last held the needle. Ka. Gray dawn lingered over the river for 3 heartbeats longer than usual, as if the very gods watched the twins with wary eyes before surrendering the morning. Ned Stark rose from a bed that smelled of rushes and river damp, to find Robb already armored, wolfskin draped across pauldrons of gray steel. The young king's expression was sober, but beneath the gravity Ned sensed a restless vigor, that unique combination of relief and purpose a man feels when tragedy is defied, yet duty calls him onward. Their breakfast was taken in an abandoned counting house above the water gate, a room of dusty ledgers and cracked shutters. Catelyn joined them, hair still loose, eyes thoughtful. Edmure arrived late, buttoning a tunic too fine for war, cheeks ruddy from a sleepless night spent comforting Roslyn. Sir Brynden leaned against the lintel, armed and ready as if dawn were merely the next watch on an endless wall. Benjen Stark stood apart at the narrow window, face drawn in the gray half-light, as if he were already halfway beyond the wall again. Ned set aside his trencher. "We ride within the hour. Robb, you and our banners will march through the Green Fork and secure Moat Cailin. I will push ahead with a fast column, harry the Boltons from the east, and reclaim Winterfell before snow closes the neck." Catelyn's gaze sharpened. Winterfell still smolders. The Bolton's men picked her bones before marching south. Taking the castle is but the first wound stitched. The north remains divided. Ned met her eyes. "Division festers in darkness. We will give them light." He turned to Benjen. "Take Lord Frey and 40 mounted rangers. Ride for Castle Black. The Watch has need of men, and the realm has need of the Watch." "Nendro." Benjen inclined his head. "If the old goat survives the journey, he may learn humility in the cold." A faint laugh escaped Robb. Then he sobered. "Father, what of the Lannisters? Word will reach them within a fortnight. They will march. They will bleed on northern spears," Ned replied. But he kept his tone measured, refusing to drown his son's hope in bravado. "We will need every house. Manderley, Hornwood, Reed, Flint, and Karstark. If Karstark can forgive the past, I will ride to Torrhen Square myself, rally the Tallhearts." "Then..." Edmure shifted, clearly eager to play his part. "The Riverlands must not falter either. The Blackfish and I can ride to Seaguard, Salt Pans, and Maidenpool, secure the crossings. But Brynden shook his head. The Freys owned every ferry worth guarding. Until we vet each riverman, your errand will be arrows in the fog. Better to stay here, Edmure. Reinforce the twins with men who can be trusted, until northern supply lines are secure. Caitlin dabbed her lips, then spoke softly. Perhaps the gods gave us this dawn so we could plan in calm. Yet calm will not last. Every raven will carry some twisted song of what happened last night. The Lannisters will call it murder. Freykin will cry for vengeance. We must be louder, clearer. Ned nodded. A proclamation goes out today. House Frey violated guest right in intent. House Stark answered with rightful defense. Lord Walder stands sentenced to the watch. Robb's crown remains, and I stand witness. Robb spread his hands. And what of you, father? You were believed dead. Some say your head was severed. Ned allowed himself a thin smile. Let the realm ponder that mystery a little while longer. For the moment, they need only know the North's hand holds ice again. A silence settled. The candle on the ledger desk sputtered. Someone outside the shutters led horses through puddles, hooves clopping in slow rhythm. Ned caught Benjen's eye and gave the slightest nod. The ranger straightened, as though ready to disappear north that instant, and slipped from the room to assemble his column. Caitlin rose first. We have miles to ride and banners to mend. She touched Ned's cheek. Travel swift, my love. He kissed her knuckles. The hush of her breath lingered on his skin, even after she left to see to the baggage train. Robb gripped Ned's forearm, the direwolf clasp biting cold where it pressed. Together, father and son said in unison. By mid-morning, the northern host spilled northward, a gray river of spears. Iron-bound wagons carted grain stripped from Frey storehouses. Small folk refugees found seats in hay carts. The Blackfish's outriders patrolled the flanks like sleek hounds. Ned led the vanguard, 200 mounted heavy lancers, 50 longbowmen on garrons, 10 outriders wearing boiled leather-dyed rivergreen to match the reeds of the neck. The twins receded behind them, banners veering limp in the chill. Ned allowed only half a glance backward. Let Walder's stones serve as a warning now. The vanguard made hurried camp at dusk among chalky hillocks south of the neck. Purple shadows stretched over marshland where reeds whispered of secrets. Wolves howled far off. Ned walked the perimeter with Sir Wendell Manderley, marking watchposts and latrines, ensuring the cooks boiled water enough to keep flux at bay. When he returned to his small command tent, he found a lantern already lit and a slight figure crouched beside his saddlebags. Arya Stark rose into the lamplight, wolf-gray eyes blazing. She wore leggings cut from a sailor's canvas, a jerkin too large, and a leather belt strung with throwing knives. Her face had thinned, but the set of her jaw remained unmistakably his daughter's. Ned's heart stumbled. He stared as though gazing at an echo-given flesh. "Little cat," he whispered. Arya flew into him, burying her face against his breastplate. For a long moment neither spoke. He felt her shoulders shake, not with tears, but with the tremor of tightly coiled fury finally eased. He stroked her dark hair. "How?" was all he managed. She pulled back, chin high. "Captured near Harrenhal, escaped the twins with the mummers after you. It was you, wasn't it? After you went inside. Gendry smuggled me in the horse lorries." Her words tumbled like river stones. "I saw you. I saw Mother. I almost ran to Robb, but..." The hall was madness. Ned cupped her cheek. "Arya, forgive me." He thought of the last time he'd tried to tame her wild spirit, scolding her about dancing masters as Sansa prattled of princes. "If the gods spared you, they have purpose." She shook her head fiercely. "Sansa's still in King's Landing. I failed to reach her, but I learned things. Whispers about Tywin shoring up Harrenhal, about Bolton's plotting. I can help." Ned saw the blade at her hip. Not the slender Bravos sword he had taken once, but something shorter, thicker, practical. His daughter, a cub, turned she-wolf. "You shall ride with us to Moat Cailin," he said, voice even. though inside an older father begged her to remain hidden and safe. Beyond that, he exhaled. We will decide together. Arya's lips stretched in a wolfish grin that reminded him of Lyanna. I'm not afraid, father. Fear keeps you alive, he reminded, but only if you master it. 2 days hard riding brought them to the causeway stones of the neck. Here the land flattened into endless bogs veined by brackish water. Scouting parties returned whispering of strange lights in the fog, marsh cannibals who drifted on hard-skulled coracles, eels bigger than dogs. Ned expected as much. Howland Reed's people were legend. At dusk, the lead riders sighted a lone woman upon a mound of mossy stone, garbed in reeds, a frog spear across her lap. Torches approached. She did not flinch. I am Mira Reed, daughter of Lord Howland, she called. The Cranogmen bid you welcome, Lord Stark. The neck is yours. Ned dismounted, stepping carefully onto tufted ground. Arya hovered close. I had been gone too long from my friend's hall, he said. Does he fare well? Mira smiled. My father tends the wounded you sent from Cross Creek. He bids me guide you through the safe causeways. There are quicksands and worse. Ned touched his heart. We accept gladly. We ride to reclaim Winterfell. Her gaze flicked to Arya, interest sharpening. A wolf maiden walks in your shadow. Arya raised her chin. I'm Arya Stark. Then you shall run the bog paths with my kin tonight, Mira said. Learn their quiet feet. Arya glanced at Ned. He nodded. Heart twisting with love and fear as his little girl loped after the silent Crannog folk into reeds that swallowed them whole. That night Ned dreamed of Tower of Joy again. Swords ringing, wind through dry grass, Lyanna's blood on blue petals. But as dawn cut the sky, the dream changed. The tower melted into weirwoods, red leaves drifting like tears, and from their trunks stepped children made of bark and moonlight. They tasted of winter air and whispered in high voices. Ice remembers. He woke sweating beneath furs chilled by bog mist. Morning saw the column wading knee-deep in mud, following Mira's marker poles. Sir Rendell's destriers complained, but the sturdy Garrons moved like otters. Twice Ned's outriders flushed out Bolton scouts. Arrows hissed. Bodies sank silently beneath brown water. Mira bound each slain man's wrist with a reed cord before pushing him under. So the neck drinks his treachery, she explained. Ned understood. On the third dawn, Jack of the Shore, a wiry ferryman in tattered gray, brought news to Mira. She relayed it to Ned under a willow canopy. Bolton riders fled Winterfell south 4 days past, hauling wagons of loot. The castle stands near empty, garrisoned by fewer than 40 spears under a man called Harwood Stout. A roar of longing rose in Ned's chest. My home lies open. He turned to Sir Wendell. Light force, no siege train. We strike by moonrise. That evening they camped in a dry hummock ringed by dead birch. Cranogmen brewed a broth of root and frog, savory despite its murk. Arya returned at sunset with mud streaks across her cheeks and a thin spear in hand. She collapsed by the fire, laughter spilling past exhaustion. They run on water, she gasped. They can vanish like mist. Mira knelt to stir the pot. Child of winter, every path is a lesson. One day you may need to step where ground is not ground. Ned watched them, a pang of pride mixing with dread. The neck forged survivors, but each lesson came at cost of innocence. Then he saw the smile in Arya's eyes. Not the timid grin of a sheltered girl, but the fierce delight of a heart that had survived horrors, yet still relished life. Perhaps innocence took many shapes. Around midnight, as owls hunted overhead, a figure emerged from the darkness. One of Ned's western scouts, cloak ragged, breath rattling. Bolton riders, my lord. A score at least. They make for Moat Cailin from the west trail, 2 leagues distant. Ned frowned. Scouts or deserters? The man gulped water. Hard to say. They bear no banners, ride hard as though devils nip them. Sir Wendell muttered. Perhaps word of your rebirth precedes you. Ned considered. If they reach the moat first, they could hold the causeway near the Crofters' ditch and stall our march. He looked to Mira. Is there a path to flank them? She smiled a bogwoman's sly smile. There is a ghost road through the mist where only Crannog feet tread. We can bring 40 blades. Ned clasped her wrist. I ride with you. He turned to Arya, expecting argument, but his daughter merely straightened, hand on spear. I ride as well, she stated. He started to protest. Mira cut him off with a quiet click of tongue. The Wolf Maiden must know the next blood if she is to claim the North one day. Ned saw a truth there. Arya would follow, if not beside him then behind, shadows or no. Better he watch her back than lose her to reckless chase. He nodded. They departed before the campfire dimmed, leaving Sir Wendell in command of the column. What followed was a hunt through fog and moonlight, soundless, eerie. Crannogmen moved single file, guiding their horses along submerged causeways, barely wider than a man's outstretched arms. Ned led his destrier, ice strapped to his back, one palm on the warm flank to keep the beast calm as unseen water lapped at its knees. Arya glided 2 paces behind, chest heaving with controlled breaths. Ned recalled the first time he'd seen her climb the walls of Winterfell, hair streaming, fearless. Now she might as well slink through shadows of legend. After 2 hours, they sighted fire points across the bog. Torches moving fast, riders unaware of watchers in the dark. Mira raised a hand. The Crannogmen faded into reeds. Ned tethered his mount to a cypress root. Arya mimicked him without command. Bolton riders splashed along a straight stretch of causeway lined by tufts of grass. Their mounts snorted steam. Ned counted 23. Some wore Bolton flayed-man surcoats, others ragged cloaks of green and pink linen. Loot sacks bounced behind saddles. Silver candlesticks, bolts of cloth, possibly torn tapestries from Winterfell's hall. Mira signaled. A frog spearman crept forward, driving stakes into murky water near the path. Ned realized their plan. Channel the riders onto unstable mud, then strike. Moments later, the first horse screamed as its forelegs plunged through crust into sucking mire. A rider cursed, tried to haul up. Another horse reared into the lot behind. Chaos erupted. Arrows hissed from reeds. Ned loosed ice from its sheath, its weight comforting, and stepped onto the path, cutting down a flailing rider who tried to free himself from stirrups. Blood steamed on water. Arya darted past, lashing a short blade across a man's hamstrings. He toppled. She drove the spear butt into his spine. It was ruthless, efficient. Ned felt a chill, both pride and fear. Within heartbeats, the skirmish ended. Survivors surrendered. 2 sank into mud, their screams gurgling. 3 lay moaning with arrow shafts protruding. Ned strode among them, breath frosting. He yanked off a rider's helmet. Under the grime, the man's face was familiar. Harwood Stout, once a kennel master's nephew at Winterfell. Betrayer by necessity or ambition. Ned knelt. How many hold Winterfell? Stout spat blood. None. We ran. The castle, cursed. Shadows rose from crypts. Wolves howled inside walls. It's haunted. Ned's stomach clenched. What shadows? The man's eyes rolled whites. A boy, on a saddle of wood and rope, his eyes white as milk. And a giant of a man with a stag head hammering the doors. He coughed ragged. We left the maester, the women. Ghosts can eat. Ned's heart hammered. Bran.u. Hodor. And maybe Rickon in the crypts. He pressed Stout's throat lightly with ice tip. Did you harm my sons? Stout whimpered. And no. Arya planted a knee on Stout's chest, expression cold. Lie and die slow. Ned felt the Crannogmen's gazes, silent judges. He drew a breath. Bind him. He answers in Winterfell before northern banners. Harwood Stout slumped in relief, then fainted. Ned rose, wiping ice on a flayed man cloak. Mira approached. Your blood calls you north. Yes, he said. He turned to the captured loot wagons, a mix of linens, silverware, and casks. We ride at once. Lord Wyman's men will follow with supplies. Dan? She nodded. There is an overland spit of hard Yardang, passes east of Greywater Watch. We can reach Winterfell in 2 days if the wind stays calm. Ned looked to Arya, mud splattered, lips pressed. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Stay at my side. She flashed a fierce grin. Try to keep up, old wolf. The march to Winterfell felt like a march into myth. The Crannogmen guided them through silty flats, where the sky was a sheet of hammered iron, and the sun, only a pale coin pressed behind rippled clouds. Ghost trains lifted from pools, their wings shedding droplets that glittered, then vanished. Arya rode a stocky bog pony she'd named Marshfire. She leaned forward, whispering to it as though to a brother in arms. On the second night they camped under a stand of ironwood, close enough to see distant plumes of smoke rising from behind the ridge. Winterfell, still smoldering from Bolton torches months before. Ned walked perimeter again, then paused beside a large moss-coated stone shaped vaguely like a wolf's muzzle. He knelt, pressing a palm to the cold. He spoke softly to the ground, a half-remembered northern prayer. Wind stirred branches overhead in a hush like 1,000 ghosts listening. Before dawn, Benjen arrived in camp, startling the sentries. Frost rimmed his beard, his black cloak soaked. He approached Ned with grim urgency. Lord Commander Cotter Pike sends ravens from Eastwatch. Dead things walk in the frost fangs. Krakens wash ashore half-eaten. Night fires gutter on the wall. Wildlings mass by the ruddy pass. Ned took the parchment scrawled with Pike's angular hand. The realm teeters on southern wars, while the true enemy gathers. His voice grated. Benjen's eyes flicked toward Arya speaking with Mira near the watchfire. Castle Black stands undermanned. We need men. Food, dragonglass. Ned exhaled. Reclaim Winterfell fast. Secure the north. Then marshal all houses to the wall. He squeezed Benjen's forearm. Ride back once we hold the castle. I'll send Manderly's grain north by barge. Benjen's mouth twisted. And if Stannis pushes the wall? Rumors claim he marches with a southern host. The wall needs every sword, Ned said. We cannot turn away any man who would face the dark. Benjen pulled his cowl. Then may the old gods watch our road. At first gray of morning they broke camp. Ned led the vanguard up the low ridge, hooves clopping on frost-slick ground. Winterfell rose before them like a wounded giant. The curtain walls charred, towers capped with skeletal floors exposed to sky, yet the bones of strength intact. Snow dusted the shattered battlements, lending them eerie serenity. Wolves howled inside. Long-kept memories seized Ned's heart. A young boy climbing the first keep, the scent of hot bread wafting from stone ovens, Lyanna laughing by the godswood pool. He firmed his jaw. A single horn call echoed from within. Out of the broken main gate trundled a massive form. The simpleton Hodor, clad in patched leather, brandishing an iron-bound oak door for a shield. Beside him trotted 2 direwolves, gray shaggy dog and white-furred Summer. Upon Hodor's shoulders sat Bran Stark in a carved weirwood seat, strapped with hide thongs. His face looked older, thinner, his eyes clouded white as milk, yet his head turned unerringly toward the riders. "Halt!" Bran called, voice carrying across frosted field. "Who comes?" Ned dismounted, peeling back his helm. A man who failed his promises, but would keep them still. Silence reigned. Then Bran smiled, tears silvering his pale cheeks. His sightless eyes seemed to look through flesh and bone. "Father," he breathed. Shaggy Dog howled. Summer answered. The marsh ponies stamped, uneasy. Arya slid from her saddle and raced forward. Hodor knelt to receive her embrace. Bran reached for Arya's hand, their fingers twining. Ned approached, voice breaking. "My son, the gods preserved you." Bran's clouded gaze lifted past Ned to the ironwood grove beyond the ridge. "The gods preserved us all, father, and they need us." Ned swallowed hard, then turned to his column. "Winterfell is ours." A cheer rose, rippling up the line, stags of dust lifting from hooves. He lifted Bran from Hodor's shoulders and held the boy close. Bran's frail arms wrapped his neck. Ned's tears came then. hot on his cheeks, unashamed before father of years and boy of vision. Hodor lumbered to stand at their side. Arya leaned into Bran's chair, cheek beside his. Summer nudged Ned's gauntlet, eyes golden, breath warm. Within the courtyard they found Maester Luwin alive, thin, bandaged, but with wits intact. He bowed low, voice trembling. "My lord, the fires died when the Boltons fled. Yet skeletal embers still threaten. We've little food, fewer hands." Ned clasped the maester's shoulders. "Rest now. The North returns." He convened a council in the great hall, its walls blackened, but roof intact. Bran sat at his side, Arya perched near the maester. Mira, Ser Vendel, Benyon, and Jack of the Shore stood as witnesses. Ned addressed survivors. Washerwomen, old guards, a handful of stable boys. "We rebuild," he told them, voice deep and low, "stone by stone. The North has bled, but its heart beats here." Shouts of assent filled the emptiness. Jack thumped a spear butt. Mira raised a reed banner. The direwolves howled. That night, flickering fires lit the ruined towers. Manderley wagons trundled under the moon, laden with barley and salted cod. From the east road rode Lady Barbary Dustin with a band of horse archers. From the hills, clans of the mountains sent pledges carved into oak blanks. All had heard rumors of Ned Stark alive. They came to see and swear anew. Ned welcomed them one by one, though exhaustion gnawed. He wrote letters by lamplight, sealing with fresh wax. Summons to Manderley, Reed, Glover, Flint, Mormont. War councils scheduled. Supply lines planned. Yet each parchment ended the same. Winter is coming, and with it night. Stand together, or fall alone. He hoped the words carried the gravity of his own dread. Near dawn he stepped into the godswood, ice across his back. Snow dusted limbs. The hot spring roused steam that drifted above the reflecting pool. Bran waited beneath the heart tree, thin hands folded in his lap. His white eyes glowed faintly red, mirroring the face in the bark. Ned approached, feeling small as any supplicant before ancient witness. Bran spoke first, voice quiet yet echoing. "You see only what lies before your eyes. But I see roots reaching through soil, rivers under ice. The past speaks if you listen." Ned knelt on cold moss. "Tell me then, what must I do?" A breeze rustled red leaves. "Prepare the North. The wall trembles. The others wake. But more. Dragons cross the world's breath. Fire and ice will meet. You must hold the realm's spine while the storm passes." Ned bowed his head. "I am no king, Bran. I am but a father with calloused hands." Bran's lip twitched. "A tree does not choose the wind, yet it braces all the same. And a leaf may carry frost to fire." Ned understood little, yet enough. He lifted his gaze to the carved face. "If I falter, then the roots will remember," Bran whispered. "But you will not falter." The pool shimmered. Ned inhaled the scent of earth and snow. In that breath he felt the weight of seasons, the watchful eyes of countless ancestors. He rose renewed. As he strode back across the yard, he found Arya sparring with Mira. Spears flickering. Bran's direwolves trotted along parapets. Men hammered planks across gate gaps. Women hauled rubble from the well. Children scrubbed soot from stone. Winterfell breathed again. Ned climbed the broken battlements and looked northward, where the horizon shimmered faintly, a pale blue line beneath swirling gray. Dawn creeping over the wall. Somewhere out there Jon Snow guarded that frigid bulwark. Ned thought of the boy. Of promises made to a sister dying in a bed of blood and blue petals. Promises still unbroken. A raven cawed, wings slapping stone. It settled on the merlon beside him, head cocked. Its leg bore a black ribbon. Ned unfastened the small scroll, opened it. King Stannis marches for the wall. Wildlings mass. Night grows deep. Aemon dot. Maester Aemon's hand. Ned's pulse quickened. He turned toward Winterfell's courtyard where Robb's riders already assembled, banners stirring. Dawn's chill flushed across his cheeks. War on three fronts. South against lions, north against frost, and east against fire. Yet Ned Stark felt no dread now, only the cold clarity of duty. The gods had returned him from death to stand in this hour. He would not waver. He tucked the raven's message inside his glove, lifted ice until the first rays of sun touched Valyrian ripples, and descended the wall to rally his people. Days bled into weeks. Winterfell became a hive of industry. Stonemasons patched split merlons, carpenters raised new palisades around the breach, bakers fired loaves in ovens warmed by the hot springs. Lady Dustin's riders scoured the countryside, driving off bandit remnants. Lord Wyman's shipwrights floated barges up the White Knife, loaded with lumber, grain, and, at Ned's urgent request, scoured iron ore for forging arrowheads tipped in dragonglass shards, shipped from ancient caves on the Isle of Skagos. Robb reached Moat Cailin, repelled Bolton vanguard, and established camps along the causeway. Ravens flew daily between father and son, coordination humming. Troop rotations, supply caches, watch schedules. Caitlin oversaw diplomacy, her letters reaching Lady Maege Mormont, Lord Galbart Glover, and even soft-spoken Lord Serwyn, urging each to muster sworn men, pledging that Winterfell's heart beat strong. Arya spent mornings drilling with Marshfire, afternoons sparring with Barbary Dustin's archers, nights running rooftops alongside Shaggy Dog in summer, learning every scent of her childhood home. Some evenings she slipped from the castle to hunt in the Wolfswood, returning with rabbits or grouse, gifts laid at Bran's feet. Bran, in turn, drifted through green-seared dreams, his body tended by Maera and Hodor. On waking, he shared visions with Ned, an iron throne melting, snowflakes falling on a woman with silver hair, a direwolf with a flaming tail chasing shadows across the snow. Ned listened, filed each image in the vault of his mind. Valyrian steel and dragonglass, he pondered. Fire and snow. The prophecy of Azor Ahai, and the prince that was promised whispered through history. Was it Jon, Daenerys Targaryen, or some other yet unborn? It mattered little if the land burned before they could rise. One frigid dawn, a rider arrived, bearing the trout banner of House Tully and the direwolf beside it. He knelt in the yard as Ned descended. Message from Lord Edmure at the Twins. Riverlords gather, but Lannister host under Sir Edem Marbrand pushes up the Blackwater, likely to break River Run's siege. They may veer north to recapture the crossing. Ned frowned. Numbers: 10,000 foot, 2,000 horse. Gold cloaks among them. Ned exhaled. Robb must hold the neck, but if Marbrand crosses the Trident, he may swing north behind. We need allies at sea. His mind turned to Lord Davos Seaworth, rumored hand to Stannis. Could one smuggler's fleet blockade Lannister's supply lines? He scribbled a letter requesting parley, handed it to the courier. Sail fast, he urged. That evening Ned consulted the castle armorer, Timon Bard, a leathery man missing an ear taken by Ironborn raiders years before. They stood in the forges, sparks showering like meteors. Ned laid out dragonglass shards. Blend these with iron, cast into arrowheads, he instructed. Fletch with goose feathers. Every archer in the north must carry at least 20. Timon scratched his stubble. Glass shatters. Obsidian shatters men of ice, Ned answered. And men of ice may march soon. Timon nodded, set to work forging molds. On the 15th night since reclaiming Winterfell, Aurora Borealis pulsed green across the sky. Bran insisted the household gather in the Godswood. The air crackled, branches shimmering as though dusted with diamond. Bran's eyes went white as milk again. His voice deepened, not his, yet not wholly other. When the sky bleeds green, the wall weeps blue. Look to the night, for dawn will not come until fire walks with frost. The vision left him. He collapsed into Mira's arms exhausted. Ned carried Bran inside. That same night, a raven screamed into Maester Luwin's tower. Castle Black under attack, giants battering the gate, dead men climbing ice, King beyond the wall rallying tribes, Lord Commander Mormont missing. Ned called an emergency council at midnight. Candlelight cast gaunt shadows across faces too tired for fear. He read the raven's words. Silence followed, broken only by the pop of sap in the hearth. Sir Wendell Manderley spoke first, voice firm. The wall falls, all we do is folly. We must march. Barbary Dustin folded arms. Leave the north unguarded, Bolton may strike. Robb's raven arrived at dawn, urging the same. A contingent must aid the watch. Ned weighed hours. Winterfell fortified. Storerooms filling. Allies pledged. But walls alone cannot fight the others. He took ice in both hands, the steel shimmering in dawn's first light. I ride for the wall, he announced. Benjen leads 300 mounted spears. Wendell brings 1,000 foot to Queenscrown as reserve. Robb holds Moat Cailin and the neck. Bran rules Winterfell in mine absence. Catelyn stepped forward, face pale. I will ride with you. Ned shook his head gently. The North needs your counsel more. He touched her cheek. Protect our children. Arya's jaw set. I go. Jon needs me. Arya. She goes, Bran interjected, voice calm, eyes open and normal. She walks a path of night and frost. She will not stray. Ned's shoulders sagged. He looked into Arya's eyes, so fierce, and saw an answer already forged. Then you ride at the vanguard, but obey every order. She grinned, that wild she-wolf glee. The muster took 2 days. Black cloaks were dyed, food packed, dragon-glass arrows distributed. Ned visited the crypts the night before departure. He strode past Stone King's, knelt before Lyanna's statue. Her stone eyes regarded him with cold grace. He laid a single blue winter rose, freshly plucked from the glass gardens warmed by hot springs, across her lap. I kept my promise, little sister, he whispered. I kept him safe. Above, footsteps echoed. Benjen entered, torch in hand. Ned rose, wiping moisture from his beard. She would be proud, Benjen said softly. Pride will not halt winter, Ned answered. But maybe love will. He clasped Benjen's forearm. Brothers of ice. Brothers of ice, Benjen echoed. At first light they rode, hooves crunching frost, breath pluming. Ned led, Arya beside him. Ice strapped across his back. A swirl of snowflakes drifting like white ravens from a cloudless sky. Behind marched Northman banners. Mermen of Manderley, flayed men of Bolton replaced by the pine of Tallheart, bear of Mormont, trident of Tully, trout within, and high above all, direwolf of Stark. On Winterfell's gatehouse Catelyn stood with Bran, Hodor, and Meera. ... Catelyn raised a gloved hand, but her gaze burned bright as campfire. Bran's blind eyes followed the line even after snow hid them, his mouth murmuring words none could hear. As the column disappeared into the wolf's wood, Ned felt the heartbeat of the land, the crunch of hidden roots beneath hoof, the hush of pine needles in wind, the distant call of an unseen direwolf. The North marched, not simply a host of men, but a waking giant of ancient stone and frozen will. 10 miles out, as they crossed a frozen ford, a lone rider in Baratheon colors thundered across the ice flats, banner snapping. Ned halted. The rider swung down, helm under arm. A woman's face stern, scar-marked, eyes blue as glacier pools. Brienne of Tarth. She bowed. Lord Stark, I bear message from King Stannis. He knows the threat behind the wall. He asks parley at Castle Black. He offers oath of alliance. Ned studied her, the pulse of possibility quickening. Fire and ice, Bran had whispered. Perhaps Stannis, with Melisandre's red god, brought the very fire they needed. He tipped his head. Ride with us, Sir Brienne. The realm may depend on it. She mounted. Hooves churned snow. A hush fell across the host. Then a horn blew 3 long blasts. The sound of ancient watchmen signaling white walkers. It came not from the wall but ahead, deep within the forest. Ned felt his horse rear, felt ice quiver against his back. The horn sounded again. Hollow, mournful, old as the first men. Arya's eyes widened. Father, what is that? Ned drew his sword. Steel, Gamdatati. The future, he answered, and spurred into the trees, where the frost-tinged dawn waited to reveal its secrets. Ya, K. A. Wall. The frosted branches caught Ned's cloak like pleading hands as he urged his gelding deeper into the wolf's wood. The hollow horn cry drifted ahead, mournful and ancient, each note vibrating in his bones as if it echoed from the marrow of the earth. Snow whirled in restless spirals, masking the trail. Distant trees blurred into dark smudges beneath a rolling sky the color of hammered lead. Behind him, the hooves of 300 riders pounded in muffled cadence. But the forest's hush swallowed their rhythm, until only breath and heartbeats seemed real. Brienne rode at his right shoulder, her banner lowered. The black stag of Baratheon furled around its pole to keep it from snagging branches. Her sword lay unsheathed across her lap, frost gathering where a smear of condensation chilled the steel. She scanned the shadows ahead, blue eyes sharp, jaw rigid. Arya galloped to Ned's left, bent low over Marshfire's neck, spear slung across her back. The wolfish grin that usually lit her features was absent, replaced by wary focus. Behind them thundered Ser Jorah's outriders and Benjen's black-cloaked rangers, bows strung and ready. A second horn blast groaned through the darkening air. Ned signaled a halt with a clenched fist. Snowflakes settled on held breaths. There, perhaps 50 yards beyond a thicket of bare alders, a flicker of pale blue gleamed among the trunks, an almost imperceptible shimmer like moonlight caught in ice. Ned's horse shied. He steadied it, slipped from the saddle, and motioned for the first rank of riders to fan into a crescent enclosing his position. A third horn call rose, long and low, then died on a hiss of silence so complete Ned felt his ears ache. In that hush, an answering howl lifted. Direwolf, but unfamiliar. Then another howl, deeper, braided with the first. Summer and Shaggy Dog were leagues behind at Winterfell. Grey Wind was patrolling with Robb. Ned shot a glance at Arya. She shook her head, confirming the same confusion. Brienne gripped her hilt until her knuckles blanched. The blue shimmer drifted closer, and shapes emerged. 2 wolves, bigger than any Ned had seen, save perhaps Ghost, their pelts the color of new snowfall, eyes aglow with the eerie cerulean of a glacier's heart. They padded soundlessly across the crusted drifts, leaving no prints. Between them strode a figure cloaked in rags of dark fur, face shadowed by a hood rimmed with frost. Tall, gaunt, barefoot despite the snow. In the figure's right hand hung a twisted horn of ancient bone, veined in silver, tip wrapped in crimson cloth. Ned raised ice point down. "Who hails us?" The figure stopped. A rasping breath drifted in the air like smoke. Long fingers reached and pushed back the hood. Beneath, a woman's face appeared, skin pale as milk glass, lips tinged blue, hair white as driven snow cascading around high cheekbones. She seemed both youthful and impossibly ancient. Her gaze met Ned's. The light of winter storms simmered in her irises. "Stark of winter," she said, voice soft yet ringing in every ear, as though whispered directly into skulls. "We have awaited your coming." Benjen drew beside Ned, hand on sword hilt. "Name yourself, spirit." The woman tilted her head. "I am called Sireni of the Frost, harbinger of the bound. The horn I bear was once blown when the world shattered its first dawn." She lifted it slightly. "I sounded it to summon guardians of what lies beyond night. Should folly thrive in mortal hearts?" Brienne's eyes narrowed. "Speak plain or not at all. Are you friend or foe?" "Neither," Sireni answered. "I am warning." Snow swirled in eddies about her ankles. The wolves behind her paced in restless circles, yet emitted no sound. Arya's breath came quick, visible in the cold. She edged her pony closer to Ned. Sireni's gaze shifted to Arya, lingering. "Child of night wolves, your thread tangles many fates. Guard your spear, for blood of dusk and dawn runs in your veins." Arya bristled, but Ned's touch on her bracer stilled any retort. Sireni returned her attention to Ned. "North of your great wall, the dead wake in throngs. But not all who walk in frost bow to the ancient king of shadows. Some remember when men sang to stone and children of leaf danced by moonlit fires. I am of those who remember. Her wolves sat, tails sweeping snow, gaze fixed on Ned. He suppressed a shiver not born of cold. If you warn, what counsel? Serene extended the horn. Do not let this sound within your walls. Its call can break ice deeper than mountains, and chains of an older order than iron. The walls of your kind, the castles of your heirs, they may crumble as salt in water if misused. A cold wind rides behind me seeking to seize it. I sensed fire and wolf traveling here. I bring the horn to you, for safekeeping, if your word still holds weight with the elder roots of the world. And no, Benjen glared. Skeptical. Why trust men who have felled forests? Slain children of leaf, forgotten their vows. Serene's lips twitched. Because winds shift, balance returns in crisis. And because the last greenseer's dream named Ned, who lost his head as keeper of the wakehorn. Ned heard Bran's unseen voice echo in his memory. Roots under soil, past speaking. He sheathed ice slowly. I swear by earth and water, and bronze and iron and steel and ice. I will guard the horn, use it only with counsel of those who remember beyond me. Serene inclined her head, relief glimmering only faintly. She stepped forward, snow cresting her bare feet without clinging, and placed the horn into Ned's outstretched arms. The bone was dense and cold, heavy with numbing chill that bit through his gloves. The cloth bandage at its tip bore characters Ned did not recognize, spirals and runes of interlocking arcs. Serene's wolves rose, sniffed the air, then turned north. She followed, pausing. Stark of winter, 3 dawns hence, a battle shall thunder at the wall of old. Flames will hunger, ice will scream. Guard the horn until need is beyond question. If the sun loses breath that day, break the binding and sound thrice. She hefted her cowl, but only then, lest the things slumbering in the deeps of frost breathe free. Without other word, she and the wolves merged into swirling snow, leaving no prints. The forest swallowed them like memory fading upon waking. Silence lingered. No one moved. Even horses seemed reluctant to break the hush. Ned hefted the horn, feeling a pulse thrumming within like a distant heartbeat frozen in crystal. Brienne found her voice first. Sorcery, Benjen muttered, or a ragged trick. Yet his tone held awe, despite skepticism. Arya dismounted, glanced at the horn, eyes bright with curiosity. Father, are we keeping it? Ned wrapped the crimson cloth tighter around the tip, binding the runes from sight. We guard it until counsel is wiser than ours. To Benjen he said, have the rangers fashion a case of boiled leather and chain it across Hodor's broad back when he comes. Not a word beyond trusted ears. Benjen nodded, then gestured to riders. Movement resumed, boots crunching snow. Harness jingling softly. Ned remounted, and they pressed on. 3 hours later, the forest thinned, trees bowing aside to reveal a sweeping, frozen meadow, etched by pale winter sun. To the north, the wall rose, a glimmering blue-white cataract of ice 800 feet high, stretching from horizon to horizon. Smoke plumes drifted near the colossal gatehouse of Castle Black. Banners snapped. Baratheon stag in black, Night's Watch raven on white, and a curious third standard. A flaming heart within which a crowned stag writhed, red on yellow. Benjen's face tightened. Stannis has arrived. Ned studied the field outside the gatehouse. Rows of tents, siege lines of wagons, makeshift pens holding shaggy northern elk and garrons. Armored men drilled in crisp formation, though the ground was semi-frozen permafrost. Their discipline impressed him. Stannis drilled soldiers like no other. Trumpets blared as Ned's host emerged from the tree line. Knights in Baratheon colors trotted forward, lances upright, escorting them across the plain. Ned had ordered his banners lowered. His 300 slowed to a respectful canter. Old walls of Castle Black's south gate loomed, patched with fresh timber where giants had hammered. Charred remnants of siege towers smoldered far to the west, black scars across snow. As they entered the castle yard, Ned's eyes took stock. Crates of onions and salt cod stacked neatly. Rows of captured wildling spears bundled for repair. Red-robed priests of Urlor tending braziers that hissed and flamed. Night's Watch brothers moved among Baratheon men, binding wounds with ragged cloth. A few shared smiles, rare among that somber order. Sir Davos Seaworth awaited them near the ash yard, glove tucked under his armpit, beard windblown. He bowed. "Lord Stark, King Stannis bids welcome. He holds council in the King's Tower." Ned swung down. Arya dismounted fluidly, spear still across her back. She fussed over Marshfire's mane, then fell in beside him. Brienne, as envoy, accompanied them, though Baratheon knights eyed her with respect, and a hint of confusion given her shift in command. Inside the King's Tower, torches flickered along stone halls, warped by centuries of wind erosion. They climbed to the council chamber. Stannis Baratheon waited behind a heavy oaken table, a blaze crackling in the hearth behind him. His face, lean, weathered, etched with perpetual scowl, turned as Ned entered. He wore a plain crown of dark steel, his breastplate etched with a fiery heart and stag. Melisandre stood to Stannis' right, red hair shimmering, scarlet gown clinging like liquid flame. Light seemed to bend around her, casting dancing shadows that flickered unnaturally. Jon Snow stood at Stannis' left in Night's Watch blacks, Longclaw at his hip, direwolf head pommel gleaming. Ghost lay at his feet, white head raised, red eyes narrowed yet calm at Arya's presence. Ned's pulse hammered to see Jon safe. He dipped his head to Stannis, then regarded his son. Jon's gaze flicked from his father to Arya. Emotions churned in their unspoken moment, but the rules of present company quashed any family outburst. Stannis addressed Ned curtly. "Lord Eddard Stark, by rights I thought your head parted from your shoulders. The realm is rife with improbable rumors." Ned met the king's stern gaze. "Rumor or not, I stand before you, your grace." He resisted, glancing at Melisandre, whose knowing smile made him uneasy. Stannis gestured to seats. "We share common foes. The wall stands besieged from both sides. Wildlings under Mansraider broke through at Deep Creek, but now rally beyond the Frostfangs. The dead stir nightly, pressing at Eastwatch and Shadow Tower. Your host strengthens our position, yet we must unify command." "Danderwange. Dark." He planted gauntleted palms on the table. "I propose joint campaign. My knights hold center, Night's Watch the east, your Northmen the western ridge. When Mance charges, we break him. Then we turn upon the whites before they gather anew." "Now." Ned listened, but he weighed Sereni's warning and the horn at his belt, hidden beneath cloak folds. "Your grace, the Night's Watch is sworn to political neutrality." Jon interjected. "Steady, father. Lord Commander Snow holds that oath." He flushed at the title still foreign on his tongue. "But the Watch will fight side by side with any living soul against the darkness. The vow binds us to defend the realm. It does not forbid us allies when the realm's fate hangs." "Meadow," Brienne added, "and wildlings may flee south. Thousands want safety, not war." She glanced at Melisandre. "To butcher people seeking refuge for fear they're dead might join the White Walkers invites torment." Stannis' gaze flicked with irritation. "Refugees swell bellies we cannot feed. Winter starves armies." Davos cleared his throat. "But a starved army fights poorly, your grace. Mercy can harvest loyalty, and hands for the wall." Melisandre's red eyes glittered. "Let the Lord of Light judge the free folk. Those with darkness in their hearts will burn away. Those with true fire may serve his purpose." Ned suppressed a shudder. "If they burn, they may rise again as foes if your priests misjudge." He set both palms on the table. "Humanity must stand as one if the Night King rallies. Slaughtering potential allies cannot win this war." Jon nodded. "I've seen wildlings fight whites to protect kin. They are as human as any Southron. They deserve a chance." Stannis' mouth drew taut, a bowstring ready to snap. He paced a slow circle around the hearth, cloak dragging embers that popped. Finally he spoke. "Very well. We grant the wildlings refuge behind the wall, provided they swear the same oath I took at Dragonstone. They bend the knee, serve in the vanguard, and accept my reign over all Westeros." Davos released breath softly. Jon glanced at Ned. Arya's grip tightened on her spear, but she held her tongue. Ned weighed the bargain. Shivering wildlings might accept any vow for survival, but forcing them under foreign crown risked mutiny later. Yet time dwindled. He dipped his head. "I shall entreat their chiefs, but we must also gird Castle Black. Dragonglass and Valyrian steel kill White Walkers. We stockpile both." Stannis eyed Longclaw on Jon's hip. "We have steel enough for my sword, Lightbringer." He unsheathed. The blade glowed with faint orange radiance, runes flickering along its center line, though Ned knew not if magic or trick of forge. Melisandre's voice hushed. The sword of promised fire awakened at Blackwater. "It will serve." Jon's face was impassive, but Ned saw a flicker of doubt. Lightbringer's glow seemed faint, its heat not felt through the chill. Ned shifted. "Steel enough? One sword does not an army arm. We forge arrowheads of obsidian. Lord Manderley's smiths work day and night. I brought samples." He produced a pouch. Davos accepted, withdrew a black glass arrowhead, passed it to Jon. The watch commander ran thumb across its razor edge and nodded. Stannis sheathed Lightbringer. "We shall equip archers with these." He turned to Davos. "Send wagons south to Eastwatch for more stone." Melisandre's eyes narrowed at the obsidian, her lips forming an unreadable phrase. Ned caught the shape of one word. Dragonglass. Whispered as though prayer. She flicked her gaze to him, and he sensed she knew of the horn he carried. He maintained steady breath. After hours of debate, they settled on strategy. Ned's Northmen would build a palisade across the shallow gorge west of the Shadow Tower. Baratheon forces would repair the breached segment near Icemark. Night's Watch would man the main gate, cycling rest every 8 hours. Wildlings would be guided through a corridor of surrender. Unarmed, they would proceed to designated camps inside the gift. The council dissolved near midnight. Stannis retreated to prayer with Melisandre. Davos escorted Ned to sparse guest quarters. Arya followed her father, silent. Jon halted them at a stairwell, ghost padding beside. Flamelight danced across his pale face. "Father," he whispered. Ned clasped his shoulders. The boy he'd raised had grown into a man of somber duty. "When ravens reported your death," Jon said, "I swore to keep the North in my heart. Now you return." Ned squeezed tighter. "You kept your oath far better than I mine. Your mother." He caught himself. Secrets still bound him. "You honor her in your service." Jon's breath caught. He dared not ask what secret still lay unspoken, but his eyes brimmed. Ned continued, "Tomorrow I ride west to fortify the gorge. Once settled, come. We shall speak." He glanced at Arya, baking under her own surge of words. "And you, little wolf, obey your brother as you would me." Arya smirked. "If he deserves it." Jon chuckled, hugged her fiercely. "Be safe, Arry." Ned left them to reunion. In his chamber, he placed the horn upon a low table, candles reflecting off silver veins. He studied its runes. Spirals merging into branching trees, knotwork nodding upon itself. The crimson cloth wrapping the tip was stained darker where ancient blood had seeped. He traced the cloth, pondering Serene's command. A knock. Ned covered the horn with a wolfskin and squared his jaw. "Enter." Melisandre's silhouette filled the doorway, the ruby at her throat pulsing. "Lord Eddard." She greeted. The door closed behind her without visible motion. Shadows quivered. Ned sensed neither heat nor cold, merely a suffocating stillness. "You conceal a relic of power." She murmured, eyes gleaming. "Fire whispers to me of its presence. I conceal nothing that threatens our alliance." Ned replied evenly. The horn was gifted into my keeping with a solemn charge. It is not to be used lightly. Few artifacts of song exist now. She said, gliding closer. One could bring down your wall. Others could raise dragons from stone. Yours may summon forces man was not meant to command. Her ruby flickered. You must surrender it to the flames so Walder may speak through the fire. Ned stepped between her and the table. That I will not. Ice rested sheathed at his hip. I swore by gods and land. Until need is beyond question, the horn remains bound. Melisandre tilted her head, expression unreadable. The night is dark. You cling to gray light, old gods withered. Beware, gray can fade into black without a flame to guide. She touched the ruby. Sparks seemed to dance in its depth. Yet perhaps in proper hour you will know flame's necessity. She turned, crimson gown flowing, and exited with silent glide. The door shut softly. Ned exhaled, heart hammering. He watched candles shiver, then steadied resolve. Outside the window, the wall's immense expanse glowed under moon's pale eye. Fires dotted the ramparts, watch posts of silhouetted sentries scanning frozen wastes. Far off, flickers of restless flames revealed outlines of siege camps. Smoke from wildling bonfires, mixing with oily columns where burned whites still smoldered. Ned slept little. Dreams came heavy. Cyreni's wolves pacing beneath bloody moon. Bran's milk-white eyes reflecting falling snow. Melisandre's ruby pulsing like a heart carved from coal. At dawn he roused to horns of muster. Snow had thickened overnight, drifts waist-high in places. Riders pushed through, clearing ways with pick and shovel. Ned convened his captains by the Frostfang gate. Sir Wendell, Myra Reed, Barbary Dustin, Sir Clay Serwyn, and Sir Mark Risewell. They formed 3 columns. Advanced scouts ahead on garrons to locate fording points. Engineers ferrying timber sleds. Infantry in center. Archers last. Brienne volunteered to accompany the scouts. Ned accepted, trusting her keen eye. John moved among the watch, barking orders, a newfound authority in his stride. Ned watched with pride. Ghost trotted behind him, tail high. By mid-morning, Ned's column departed Castle Black, heading west along the base of the wall. Cracked ice caves yawned at irregular intervals, breath of frigid air sighing out. Every few hundred yards the wall changed hue, shifting from azure to deep sapphire where thickness increased. Engineers marveled, but Ned pushed them on. At hour past noon they crossed the footprint of a recent battle. Broken ballista bolts protruding from snow, scattered shields bearing weirwood tree designs. Signs of free folk clans. Frozen corpses lay blue-lipped, eyes cloudy. Ned ordered them burned. Miras Cranagman doused the pyres with oil tar. Flames leapt, thick smoke curling. As the fires roared, a sudden chorus of cracking ice echoed from the wall. All heads turned. A fissure jagged downward like lightning, disgorging a thin plume of powdery crystals. Men scrambled back, fearing collapse. But the crack stilled. Engineers muttered of temperature shifts. Ned exchanged looks with Mira. The wall groans. It feels an old horn's call even in silence. They pressed on. Near dusk they reached the gorge, an ancient ravine carved by meltwater, bridging the Frostfang Mountain's base to the wall's foot. A wooden postern once spanned it, but wildling giants had torn sections away. Ned surveyed the jagged edge, calculating. We build a V-shaped palisade across, he instructed. Logs stacked at slant, outer face oiled. Archers behind walkway. He assigned Barbary's riders to patrol slopes above. That night, they erected the first timber fortifications under flickering torches. North wind howled through gaps, driving needles of ice into exposed skin. Sleep came in snatches. Ned took turn on watch, standing upon a makeshift platform gazing into blackness where snow met sky. In the small hours, a shape moved beyond torchlight. Ned's bowman drew, but he signaled hold. From gloom emerged a hunched figure bearing a tattered white flag fashioned from rabbit pelts. 10 more shapes followed. Wildling women clutching infants, ragged boys dragging sacks. A crippled elder, supported by a spear stump, approached. Ned descended the platform. His breath plumed. The elder spoke in Old Tongue. Mira translated. They fled Mance's camp when whites rose in the night, taking kin. They begged food, shelter, safe passage. Ned nodded. He assigned a dozen guards to escort them to Castle Black's corridor of surrender. One little girl slipped from her mother's arms, laid a carved bone bear at Ned's feet. A child's gift. Ned bent, accepted with gratitude. The bear's tiny eyes, carved of jet, seemed to gaze back knowingly. Dawn's pale glow revealed the palisade halfway finished. Workers hammered planks, steam curling from mouths. Brienne returned with scouts. Signs of movement northeast, she reported, wiping frost from pauldron. Large host, campfires dotting hillside. Could be Mance repositioning. Ned nodded grimly. We must complete by nightfall. Throughout the day, they labored. John arrived near noon with 200 brothers of the watch, delivering kegs of pitch, bundles of dragonglass arrows, sacks of obsidian daggers, newly forged at Eastwatch. He clasped Ned's forearm. Snow falls heavier east. Stannis digs trenches, sets fire traps. Ned gestured to the barrier. Hurry your men along rampart. If giants come, we need height. Ben Tuar. As sun bled weakly behind clouds, horns blared from the north ridge. One blast, then two, then three. Bites. Ned's stomach clenched. Snow squalls obscured the horizon, but shapes appeared. Human silhouettes marching in ragged lines, dead flesh pallid, eyes glowing blue. Among them lumbered two giants draped in thawed furs, their vast clubs carved from pine trunks. Ned barked orders. Archers took position, notching dragonglass arrows. Behind, pitch cauldrons bubbled. Benjen commanded rangers to flank with fire knots, bundles of oily tow bound to shafts, lit before flight. The dead advanced in silence save creaking joints and crunch of snow. When they reached 100 yards, Ned raised his sword. Loose. Arrows sang. Got. Dragonglass tips pierced rotting flesh. As each struck, blue light flickered, then corpse collapsed, limbs twitching. Giants roared, clubs swinging. One shattered part of the palisade, splintering timbers. Ned charged, ice gleaming. Brienne ran beside him, greatsword angled. John leapt from platform, longclaw flashing silver. Together, they met the first giant. Brienne hacked its knee. Ned plunged ice through thigh, severing tendons. It toppled, roaring. John rammed longclaw into its chest. Blue glow guttered. Giant fell still. Second giant barreled through broken section. Maris Cranigman hurled fire knots. Flames licked fur. Beast howled, stamping. Ned seized a pitch torch, thrust it deep into its gut wound. Fire took hold. Giant stumbled backward, crashed into whites, igniting them. Yet more dead pressed. Benjen's archers rained arrows, thinning ranks. Snow turned to slush as heat of battle, pitch fires, and spilled gore mingled. Ned's arms ached. Ice drank blood, its weight dragging but purposeful. Hours blurred. Finally, horns blew two sharp notes. Watch signal for retreat of enemy. Whites staggered back, those still animated, as if guided by unseen force. They melted into falling snow, leaving smoking heaps of char behind. Exhausted cheers erupted. Casualty count. 24 Northmen slain. 6 watch brothers felled, but none risen, burned swiftly. Ned knelt among bodies, offering silent prayer. Brienne slumped on a stump, bloodied but fierce. John approached, face streaked with soot. They tested our lines. He kicked at a frozen corpse. Tomorrow they'll come stronger. Ned wiped ice. Tomorrow we finish palisade and salients. Night after we hold. Then we make them bleed frost until dawn breaks thrice. John eyed the wall. And if dawn fails? Ned's thoughts drifted to the horn locked in chest under guard. He clasped Joan's shoulder. One step at a time, my son. Late that night, Ned wrote letters to Caitlin, Robb and Bran, recounting the battle, urging Rob to send additional lumber, and any maesters versed in wildling tongues. He paused over Brands. Your visions guide us more than you know. We stand at the brink. Keep faith. He sealed them with wolf wax. He carried the bear carving given by the wildling child, rubbing its smooth surface. In the flickering candlelight, its jet eyes seemed alight with depths unfathomable. He set it before the horn chest as talisman, and prayed to nameless old gods and knew why. 3 days later, dawn broke crimson behind swirling storm clouds, staining snowfields like spilled wine. Trumpets thundered along the wall. Ravens shrieked. Drums pounded. The wildling army approached. Tens of thousands huddled behind timber sleds, turned shield walls, giants pounding war drums, mammoths trumpeting. Behind them, a second horde emerged. Eyes glowing blue. White walkers astride dead horses, swords of pale crystal sheathed in frost. The Night King rode among them, crowned in ice, aura of chilling dread emanating. Ned's breath crystallized. He looked to Stannis upon Rampart Center, Lightbringer raised. The sword's glow flared brighter than before, golden flame dancing across runes. Melisandre stood behind him, lips moving in silent litany. Davos gripped his hilt, steel but no fire. Jon at Ned's side drew Longclaw. For the realm, he murmured. Arya nearby twirled her spear. Tension coiled. Ghost stood between them, low growl vibrating. Ned glanced at the chest where the horn rested under guard of Hodor, who towered with shield door strapped to arm. He recalled Sereni's warning. Break the binding only if sun loses breath. Crimson sun now flickered behind thunderheads. Wind howled, but still it breathed. Trumpets blared. Snow churned as armies clashed. Ned raised ice, voice ringing. For the north, the palisade blazed with lit pitch. Dragonglass arrows arced. Giants roared defiance. Flame met frost. Steel met bone. Life met death. The world tilted on edge of night. And so the long hour began, on which the future of Westeros balanced like a coin upon a sword's edge. Its outcome still unwritten in the ancient roots of the weirwoods, still spinning in the flicker of flame and the breath of endless winter. Flakes the size of copper coins whirled against Ned's cloak as he planted his boots atop the palisade's fresh-hewn walkway. The night rang with shrill, eerie quiet, the hush before a storm so vast it seemed to swallow sound itself. Somewhere behind the black curtains of snow, mammoths lowed and sledges creaked, ropes snapping taut while wildling drivers shouted in tongues long foreign to southern ears. Between mammoth bellows echoed the muffled thump of drums. Giant drums, their echoes rising through the gorge, like the heartbeat of some colossal beast stirring beneath the ice. On the rampart to Ned's right, Jon tested the heft of Longclaw, knuckles whitening round the wolf-head pommel. A gust rippled past, and every lantern along the barricade bobbed and flickered. In the wavering glow, Ned could see how gaunt Jon had grown since Castle Black's last provisions. Hollows shadowed his cheeks, but the gray of his eyes burned steady. Arya crouched beside him, her spear's obsidian tip shining slick and black under a thin crust of rime. When she exhaled, the steam came in fierce little bursts, like a hunting cat's hiss. Across the breach of snow-choked ground and broken ice, the Free Folk's front line shifted restlessly. Ragged shield walls cobbled from sled boards. Window shutters, half-frozen rawhides stretched across crude wooden frames. Between each wall rang the guttural calls of Thens, rattling bronze axes against iron-bound hides. Above them rose tall standards of bone and sinew, painted in pigments of blood and charcoal. The weeping eye, the horned skull, a pair of long limbs broken and inverted to resemble the rune of Crowkiller. Behind those shields loomed shapes impossibly tall. 13 giants in bearskin stitched with sealskin patches, forearms thicker than tree trunks. Each gripped a club of knotted pine or spruce harvested from the timberline far below. Snow collecting on wild hair made them appear sculpted from the same gray that enveloped the world. Then another army manifested where shadows once lay dead upon the drifts. Lieutenant Torrin of the Watch, stationed on a forward platform 10 paces below Ned, gasped aloud and pointed. Lantern flame bounced across his cheeks, illuminating the spectral parade now unveiling itself in hushed stages. A legion of corpses, frost-burned faces coward of flesh, sockets aglow with azure fires. They streamed between the wildling ranks, climbing over sledges and weaving around mammoths as though weightless ghosts. Where they passed, the living shrank away, leaving channels in the formation. Some order imposed by will, unseen. Ned's hand slid to the chest harness, strapping the wakehorn against his ribs. He felt the chill of ancient bone through layers of leather and fur. Sereni's words repeated like a whispered chant. Break the binding, and sound thrice when sun loses breath. He glanced eastward at the filthy smear that was dawn. The horizon glimmered faint rose behind a wall of swirling dark cloud, as though the sun struggled beneath heavy claw. But the breath of day had not yet failed. A rider slogged up the ramp. Davos, cloak thrashing around his wooden fingers. Stannis stands ready, he said, voice raw from shouting over wind. Lord Snow reports ravens refuse the sky. They circle, then wheel back inland as though some wall of glass bars them. He thinks it omen. Davos' brow creased as he caught Ned stare at the clouds. Stranger skies than any sailor has known. Ned could offer no comfort. Tell his grace. The first giants leaned forward. The moment they charge, we loose burning pitch and fire arrows, then cut the ramps. Davos gave brisk nod, boots crunching as he descended. Another boom of drums, deeper now. Giants driving war poles, the size of masts, into the frozen ground in rhythm. An answering trumpet blared from Stannis' lines. 3 harsh blasts. Signal torches shattered their oil lamps in ribboned bursts. Fire blossomed along trenches dug hours before, illuminating palisade faces and slick shields. The flames painted Jon's profile bronze and vivid. It lit Arya's eyes so they mirrored the same molten hue as her spearpoint. Giants began to stride. The first swung a club overhead. The motion alone collapsed one of the wildling shield carts, scattering men in furs. They weren't striking foes, merely drumming force into courage. Snow shuddered beneath, and Ned felt the rampart tremble. Yet the wildlings did not charge. From somewhere behind their ranks rang a raucous horn of moose antler and rawhide. Wildlings parted as a figure pressed forward. Tall, rangy, shoulders cloaked in speckled owl feathers, face hidden beneath an iron half-mask shaped like a screeching bird. The man, or woman, raised both hands. Silence fell as breath crystallized in every mouth. The figure turned slowly, gaze sweeping across both armies before slamming the butt of a spear into snow. A single word belled across the field in old tongue so ancient even Benjen, beside Ned on the firing step, frowned uncertain. Whatever the command, movement erupted. Wildlings surged, giants lumbering in measured strides, mammoths urged by torchmen jogging at their flanks. But Ned noticed half the free folk hung back, clutching children, elderly, the wounded. They were herded by men with wolf pelts and white-painted faces, some brandishing flaming brands as whips. Refugees forced to follow the war tide. A living shield. Ned's jaw clenched. The first mammoth thundered into the killing ground, where crews of the watch had hidden caltrops. Iron spikes anchored in ice. Its foot came down upon a cluster. The beast shrieked, veered, crashed into another sled. Wildlings scattered. Archers along the wall loosed strings. Obsidian shafts arched downward. Hundreds of wights in front ranks fell, limbs severed, skulls pierced. Yet the wave rolled onward. "Pitch!" shouted Ned. Buckets swung, viscous black liquid cascading over log parapets. Torches followed, whooshy, and a curtain of blazing oil fell across the giants. 2 caught full torrents. Bearskins ignited in torrents of yellow and green flame. One giant raked at its face in terror, but resinous fire clung, devouring flesh. The second bowled forward aflame, stumbling into palisade stakes with such momentum, the barrier cracked but held. Then came the Night King. He rose above the throng, astride an undead horse, armor of glacial crystal refracting every torchlight ray into razor prisms. Frost spilled from his cloak like the breath of an entire winter. At his side glided half a dozen white walkers, each lean and tall, swords of ice bared. Their piercing blue gazes raked the rampart. Ned felt the hair on his nape stand. On some unseen signal, the white infantry surged again. this time toward Stannis' central line. Ahead trotted Melisandre in crimson robe, chanting, arms outstretched. Flames leaped higher in answer, forming a living wall. Undead bodies hurled themselves into fire. Some writhed, others clambered on burning comrades, reaching hands that still clawed even as muscle charred away. Through it all rode Night King at a slow, deliberate pace, fire bending around him yet dimming where he passed. Ned's archers turned their focus. 20 arrows of dragonglass screamed toward him. 5 struck the horse. It exploded into shards of brittle meat and ice. Yet the Night King sprang lightly to the ground, raising a palm. The rest of the arrows shivered in midair, frozen by unseen force, then fell to snow useless. A collective gasp rippled. "Ready, scorpions," Benjen shouted. 2 great torsion bow machines cranked on reinforced towers. Their bolts, tipped with raw dragonglass blades wider than a man's hand, groaned into grove guides. Teams hauled levers, cords thrummed. Both bolts flew, trailing ropes. One spun off course, deflected by swirling wind, and embedded in hillside behind wildlings. The other flew true, aimed at the Night King's chest. He stepped aside with unnatural grace. The bolt crashed into undead ranks, sending limbs skyward. The Night King lifted his sword, pointing beetle-black tip at the wall. A tremor passed through the ice itself. That great mountain of frozen tears moaned like a whale in deep agony. Fractures spidered outward from the earlier fissure, cracks chiseling downward. Ned's mind flashed to the horn beneath his cloak. Sound thrice when the sun loses breath. He scanned the sky. The crimson smear of dawn was now gone, smothered by vexed storm clouds swirling faster than nature's hand. Snow fattened into icy pellets, ragged wind screaming through ragged gap. Daylight waned, though the turn of hour should ascend toward morning. Past Serenus wolves came last words. If the sun loses breath. Ned's chest tightened. The day's breath shuddered in the lungs of the sky, teetering. Down below, Jon barked at 3 runners who hauled forward barrels. They popped lids, unveiling black chunks of dragonglass fused into clay pots of wildfire stolen from captured Lannister wagons. Lids alit, the pots were flung by sling into the dense whites. Green flame detonated, bodies burned to vapor, shards of obsidian blasting outward. Hollow screams rose, cut short as azure flames winked out. Yet burnt corpses began to stir anew. Fire had not touched bone, and now without flesh, they crawled on skeletal fingers, blue light gleaming within hollow ribcage. Ned's stomach dropped. "Obsidian alone isn't enough like this," he muttered. "They are too many." Below, giants battered at weakened palisade section, swinging smoldering clubs. One breached a joint. The supports groaned. Brienne leapt into the gap, shield raised, parrying a descending fist that smashed wood into kindling. Her greatsword slashed, carving a bloody smile across giant calf. Mira's crannogman darted under its legs, severing tendons with bone saws. The beast toppled into whites, crushing dozens. Farther left, one mammoth rammed a burning support, splintering it. Watchbuilders dived aside as beams fell. The sky cracked. Thunder unrolling a snarling roar. Lightning forked from cloud belly to wall's crown. At the strike point, ice melted and hissed, steam spiraling. And the sun, gone altogether. A roiling blackness eclipsed even the faint glimmer of dawn. Ned could sense no source of light save flame and ghosts of aurora flickering unnatural red. Sun loses breath. Ned unstrapped the horn. Hodor loomed behind, eyes wide. "Hodor?" he asked, voice trembling for the first time Ned had heard. Ned said. "Hold the gate. If I fall, Bran must choose another." Hodor nodded, planting his shield door across breach. Benjen glimpsed horn in Ned's grasp. "Are you certain?" "There may be worse yet," Ned answered. "But if the wall itself falls..." Crack. Dodden. Ice along the fissure sheared forward, cascading in avalanches that slammed ground in thunderous downdrafts, raising clouds of crystalline powder. Sections of outer face sheared off, burying whites and wildlings. But pillars of shattered ice also catapulted into Stannis trenches, flattening dozens of men. The wall groaned again, like some ancient leviathan wounded in its flank. Melisandre threw back her hood, hair whipping, arms stretching toward break in sky. "Lord of Light, unleash dawn," she cried. Flames burst from trenches, momentarily brightening gloom. But almost instantly a swirling vortex of ice fog consumed them, stifling fire with smothering cold. The Night King halted his march. Raising his sword overhead, he spoke no word, but his followers answered in silent chorus. Every wight stopped and turned faces to the wall. The king lowered blade toward a single segment of ice where cracks glowed faint cerulean. At his gesture, wights hurled themselves there, building a pyramid of bodies. Giants pressed into mound, clubbing the ice with fists. In moments, the entire mass of undead hammered, carved, climbing atop one another like mindless ants, tearing through rotting wood. Melisandre staggered, ruby pulsing frantic. She faced Ned across tumult. "Sound the ancient cry." Voice lost to wind. Ned shoved the silver-veined horn to Benjen. "If I blow, cover." He tore free the crimson winding band. Cloth unfurled like blood, the runes beneath throbbing cold. Ice crystals formed along his beard. Wind turned cyclone around Horn's mouth, as though sucking in every living breath. Jon climbed the ramp to Ned. "What is that?" "Hope or doom," Ned answered. "If I fall, flee. Guard Bran." He pressed Horn to lips. The bone burned with cold. Tongue numbed instantly. He inhaled. Heart thundering. Blasted. Sound erupted like mountains splitting beneath oceans of thunder. Air quaked. The wall shook from crown to base. Even the Night King paused, turning ice-flame eyes toward Ned. The note carried low and deep, felt more in bones than ears. Lanterns shattered. Men fell to knees clutching heads. Wights rocked in place. The horn's howl rolled across frozen gorges, echoing off distant peaks, returning layered over itself until the sky howled. Ned staggered, nearly losing grip. Blood trickled from his ear. He inhaled again and blew second time. Higher pitch, keening, agony inside skulls. Giants bellowed, clutching ears. Mammoths trumpeted in fear, trampling wights. Flames guttered and surged simultaneously. The cracked wall fissures emitted shafts of azure light, and then began to seal, ice knitting in reverse as if time ran backward. Frost spread outward from those glowing seams, healing the damage. Snow funneled upward, sucked into ice. A hush fell, broken only by the third blast. Half a breath Ned managed before knees buckled. This final tone rang like crystallized bells struck by hammers of starlight. It coursed through every living vein. Hearts synchronized. For an instant, Ned perceived the world as lattice of shimmering strands. Roots of weirwood glowing crimson. Ley lines of fire snaking beneath dragonstone. Black rivers of ice, pulsing northward from some abyss of night. Then vision snapped shut. Silence. Snow fluttered soft again. No wind. Fires steadied. The sky above parted, a single beam of pale sunlight spearing through swirling clouds, painting the Wakehorn and Ned in hallowed brilliance. Day breathed once more. The Night King raised his blade, but for the first time, he stepped back. Frost aura dimmed fractionally. His mount reassembled from shattered bones and ice, knitting under unnatural force. In that hesitation, Stannis ordered charge. Knights of the Queen's men surged through rebuilt trench gates, Lightbringer blazing bright in Stannis' gauntlet like a bar of molten gold. The sword's light magnified in midday sun as though Horn had birthed dawn anew. Knights smashed into wights, cutting swaths. Jon's black brothers rallied, stabbing with obsidian daggers. Brienne vaulted barrier, leading Crannog spearmen in wedge into stunned wildling ranks. Yet those free folk who had been forced into battle now threw down arms, some even turning to fight undead behind them. From the rear of wildling host thundered Mance Raider's horn. Cloaked in crow-black patchwork, the king beyond the wall reined his Garen beside the iron-masked war leader seen earlier. Revealed as Val, The Free folks made of the spear. Together they signaled retreat from the White Walkers, ushering their people to Stannis' corridor. Chaos erupted as entire clans broke away, sprinting for refuge behind fires. Whites attempted pursuit, but were met by watchman arrows. Ned watched from rampart, vision swimming. He clutched palisade beam to keep upright. Benjen caught him. "Are you hurt?" "Spent," Ned rasped. "But alive." He looked to Horn, its silver veins now dull. The runes darkened. A faint spiderweb of cracks marred rim. It had given all or near. Below, the Night King assessed shifting field. White Walkers circled him, conferring without voice. Giants, some aflame, still battered barricade, but less fervently. Sensing tide turned, the Night King raised arms. A vortex of black snow whirled skyward. Whites still standing collapsed into powder, skeletons disarticulating. Bones sucked upward into cloud swirl. Giants fell where they stood, drained of animating force. White Walkers retreated in shimmering blur, gliding across field toward deep gorge where unnatural mist rose and swallowed them. Silence again, different now. Aftermath hush broken by groans, sobs, clinks of fallen weapons. Soldiers peered around, stunned at victory cut short of annihilation. Stannis halted near Ned's platform. Lightbringer dimmed to faint glow. He raised helm visor. What sorcery saved the wall? Ned descended shaky ladder. Gift from those older than men. Perhaps priced beyond reckoning Condor. He held horn pieces. Small fractures spider-webbed across length. Melisandre approached, eyes aflame with zeal. "Lord of Light shone through your breath, Lord Stark. He guided your hand." "Or the old gods," Ned countered. "We stand because ice chose not to fall. Not because any one god triumphed." She opened mouth, but Stannis cut her off. "Leave theology. Practical matters first. Our position remains perilous. Mance's folk flood our gates. Whites withdrew, but will regroup." He surveyed Horn. "Can it sound again?" Ned examined fractures. "Perhaps once more, but it may shatter. In consequence unknown." Stannis nodded grim. "Then we shore defenses while they lick wounds." The rest of day blurred in fever of triage. Wildlings handed over weapons, guided by Jon through oath lines marked in blood. Children coaxed from hiding with crusts of bread. Giants' corpses piled for burning. Maester Aemon, hazed by smoke, presided over field hospital, mixing honey salves with dragonglass dust for flesh wounds. A remedy, his ravens whispered, might slow frost infection. Evening fell calm, but as stars prickled, Ned felt tremor in earth. A heartbeat echo from far north, in the Graith Hall of Castle Black. He spoke quietly with Bran via Raven Dream. Bran's voice drifted across winter winds. The horn's echo reached all roots. Something ancient shifted in ice rivers beyond Frostfangs. Walkers withdraw to birth something new. Ned's heart chilled. He left hall, strode along wall stair, climbing until world spread like map of moonlit white. Jon stood there, cloak whipping. They faced silent north. "You broke the Night King's assault," Jon said, awe tinged with dread. "We only delayed," Ned answered. He placed hand on Jon's shoulder. "But we bought time. Enough to unite realm, if we seize it." Jon's gaze hardened. "We must convince southern kings to send men. To convince, we need proof of greater threat." Ned lifted cracked horn. Moonlight streamed through spiderweb fissures. "This may be proof and bargaining chip. And if last barrier fails, final hope. Then the one. Eddie." He turned to Jon. "Ride south with Davos at first thaw. Speak in King's Landing, Old Town, Sunspear. Show them dragonglass. Tell them the dawn nearly died." Jon hesitated. "And you?" "I remain here. The wall healed but not safe. Night King will try other breaches. Bran foresees storms of ice rising from sea cliffs. Perhaps he will send dead things by water." Jon nodded, fire kindling. "Then I'll go." "But father," lips trembled, a rare crack in his mien. "If I never return." "You will," Ned said, drawing him close. "You were born for long night." He held John like when lad was small, whispering truth he'd hidden decades. "Your mother was Lyanna." Oxygen froze between them. John stiffened. Ned continued before shock could break him. "Your name at birth, J. Harris, hidden to protect you. Secrets cost lives but may now save kingdoms. When you speak to southern lords, claim Stark and Targaryen both. Ice and fire." John's eyes glistened. Targaryen?" Breath ghosted. "Why now?" "Because tomorrow needs a torch no one expects," Ned answered. He released him. John stepped back, tears freezing on lashes. Far below, horn of evening watch blew, single note. Ned and John descended. At dawn, ravens arrived. From Winterfell, from Moat Cailin, from River Run. Bearing news, Roose Bolton had mustered at Dreadfort. Banners headed south. Tywin's bastard host crossed Red Fork seeking retake Twins. Ironborn longships raided White Harbor, realm fracturing even as Icetide threatened anew. Ned gathered council in King's Tower. Stannis, Davos, Jon, Brienne, Mira, Mance now unshackled, Val, Melisandre reluctantly, and Aemon whose eyes glimmered with tears of remembrance. Ned laid cracked horn on table. "Today," he began, "we achieved the impossible and survived. Tomorrow, 3 more wars sprint toward this wall. Southern lions, flayed men, drowned men. And beyond, the Night King births storms yet unseen. We either stand together now, or the realm is lost piecemeal." He fixed each leader with unwavering stare. Even Melisandre looked away. From this hour, the North, the Night's Watch, the Free Folk, and King Stannis loyalists form single host, the Pact of the Dawn. We cease grievances, share stores, share walls. We plan to move south, when snows relent, not for conquest, but to gather every man, woman, and child, willing to repel true enemy. Nendeho. Mance folded arms, lips quirking. Crow lords seldom keep pacts. "Break this one," Ned said, voice cold as wall itself. "And there will be no one left to betray. White Walkers will raise your bones and march you against your own hearths." A long silence, broken by Aemon's frail voice. "I have served 90 years upon this wall. Never have I heard truer words." Stannis' jaw flexed. "So be it. The Pact of the Dawn, under my crown." Mance smirked. "Under survival." Yet he inclined head. Val unsheathed a dagger of walrus bone. Sliced palm. Offered bleeding hand across table to Ned. He clasped, letting a bead of his own blood drip. Dark red drops splattered cracked horn. One fell upon Rune. The bone drank it. Fissures glowing faint silver anew. A tremor rippled through table. Melisandre's eyes widened. Outside, wind calmed. For briefest instant, stars swirled overhead, forming pattern like wolf's head, embraced by flaming heart. Before clouds closed, Jon spoke last. "Then we are bound by blood and word. We live, or we die together." Beowponderi. That night Ned stood on battlement as gentle snow fell. Quiet, almost peaceful. He traced ice rim where horn once cracked. Fissures now sealed halfway, as though pact itself mended bone. When he pressed ear to horn, he swore he heard distant thunder of waves upon shore, and whale song deeper still. Perhaps the world itself exhaled, momentarily relieved. But across frozen valley, in black citadel of night, the Night King watched through glassy lens of dark aurora. At his feet, a new shape coiled, dragon-like, carved of ice and sinew. Eyes blank slates awaiting first blue spark. He lifted crystal blade, drew line of power across its brow. Storm clouds churned fierce, hiding atrocity to come. Ned Stark lowered the horn, pulled fur tight, and whispered into moon-silver air. "Winter's not done with us yet." Beneath his breath, the horn answered with a whisper almost too faint to hear. Yet the wall felt it, the trees felt it. The wolves in distant wood pricked ears. It sounded less like warning now, more like promise. And far away in Winterfell's Godswood, Bran Stark opened his milk-white eyes and smiled a thin, knowing smile at the heart tree's face. Because the roots had carried the horn's echo home, and the old gods had begun to sing again in voices of creaking ice and flowing fire. Oh, Ka. Ash-gray dawn seeped across the ragged towers of Castle Black, unfurling chilled wisps of vapor that clung to arrow slits as though the wall itself exhaled. Ned Stark had slept scarcely an hour, his dreams tangled in frost-bitten visions of the Night King's half-formed ice dragon and a weirwood forest burning with impossible blue flame. Yet when the first horn of morning sounded, one low note for the changing of the watch, he was already striding the battlements, boots crunching over hoarfrost. Far below, in the churned no-man's land where charred mammoth carcasses steamed beside the twisted ruin of undead giants, scavenger crows picked at rents of blackened flesh. Each flap of wings echoed like tatters in the wind. He halted above the outer gate. Mance Raider's remaining wildlings were filing through the corridor of surrender. A ragged river of humanity, children hoisted on shoulders, elders tottering behind sleds piled with salted fish and chipped axes. Jon Snow, flanked by Ghost and Sir Davos, oversaw the process. The white direwolf paced, ever vigilant, while Jon checked each clan chief's oath mark, a blood-crusted slash across left palm pressed to parchment and sealed with Castle Black's wax. The makeshift registry already bulged with names in Stark, Rhoynar, Old Tongue, even clumsy glyphs of the thens carved with bone-needled ink. A voice drifted from Ned's left. The free folk, do they look freer now? Brienne drew beside him, helm tucked under her arm, blonde hair stiff with frost. Her gaze swept the shuffling column below. Pity tempered her warrior's edge. Freedom may start with full bellies, Ned answered. He did not mention that the castle's grain stores could scarcely feed 10,000 mouths through deep winter, let alone 30. Yet each soul saved from the Night King's command was a spear for the living, if they survived the cold. Boots pounded behind them. Benjen emerged, cloak trailing a plume of fresh snow. Ravens from Eastwatch. He extended 2 scrolls crusted with rime. One from Cotter Pike confirming the sea at Hardhome is no longer frozen solid. Ice dissolved overnight as though heated from below. The second from the Iron Islands. Lord Botley claims Victorian Greyjoy sails north with 200 longships. Ned's brows knitted. Greyjoy draws breath only when plunder is promised. If the Night King's horde sweeps south, nothing along the coast will stand against both ice and kraken claws. He scanned the horizon where low clouds shrouded the shivering sea. Send answer. Eastwatch must mine every rock of dragonglass they find beneath those cliffs. If Botley is true, warn him. Greyjoy's ships that land here will bend knee to the Pact of the Dawn or burn. Benjen gave curt nod, vanishing into swirling haze. Brienne rested knuckles on rough ice. How long before Bolton strikes Moat Cailin? If he stabs the neck now, Robb is pincered. Now. Roose Bolton prefers eel-slick cunning, Ned murmured. Hell, wait until the realm's eyes turn fully north or fully south. We deny him that moment. He straightened. Tonight I ride for Winterfell to assemble fresh hosts, every hill clan, every sworn house that remembers the first pact with the Starks. You'll remain here with Jon until he departs for King's Landing. And Brienne. He met her frank stare. Guard him better than you ever guarded Renly. Southern courts swallow honor like carrion crows. Menand. She flinched, though not at the reproach but the memory. I will die before I fail him. See that you live instead. The world already trades too many good lives for death. Below, the last of the wildling columns shuffled through the gates. Val approached Jon, brow marked with 3 horizontal cuts, scarification of the spearwives, then pressed a hand to his forearm. Her lips moved. Jon's shoulders squared as though burden replaced by resolve. Ned watched his son, no Lyanna's son, accept responsibility with a quiet nod. His back seemed broader than last winter. Icy weight turned into unbreakable steel. A sudden oath from yard level snagged Ned's attention. In the cinder charcoal wreckage of a toppled siege ram, 2 watchbuilders wrestled a limp, frost-blue corpse, As sunlight touched the body, its eyes sparked with renewed azure. Skeletal hands lunged. One builder shrieked. Ned shoved off the parapet walkway, boots sliding down the nearest ladder, and tore ice from its sheath. Before he reached the scuffle, Mira Reed materialized, silent as marsh fog, and drove her frog spear's dragonglass head through the corpse's skull. The blue glow guttered, sputtered, died. She kicked free, fluid, unafraid, then flicked Ned a rueful half-smile. Even ashes harbor embers. She said, wiping the blade on snow. Ned clapped the builder's shoulders. Salt, fire, and dragonglass for every corpse, no exceptions. They swallowed terror, saluted, hauled the remains to the pyre line. He turned to Mira. Your father once told me the neck listens to whispers of trees. Did he foresee ice demons nesting in dead men's ribs? Then Dimenture. She cocked her head as though hearing phantom reeds. He foresaw storms. He said the first men broke something sacred when they carved out ice for walls tall enough to hide stars. Now the stars want to look us in the eye again. Ned sheathed ice. Let's hope they approve what they see. That night, under a green-tinged curtain of aurora veiling the sky, John convened final council before his southern ride. They gathered in Maester Aemon's library chamber. Warmer than the wind-scoured halls, scented with beeswax, parchment, and the faint hush of secrets. Stannis attended, armor polished to dull sheen, Lightbringer resting easy across his knees. Melisandre stood behind him, one hand on the chair's back, ruby pulsing like a vein of magma. Mance Rayder lounged in a bearskin thrown over a bench, ankle shackled, but chain left slack, a gesture of half-trust, half-warning. Val sat cross-legged at his feet, eyes bright. Davos occupied a narrow window alcove, quill hovering above a hide map of the King's Road. Mira Reed and Brienne flanked John. Benjen kept silent watch with two rangy rangers near the door. Above them all reigned dusty tomes of forgotten lore. Dragon lore from Ashai, listing of Old Town's Blackstone monuments, half-rotten annals of Rhoynar migrations. Ned set the cracked wakehorn gently on a cleared portion of the table. Candlelight licked across mottled bone. The veins now gleamed silver-white, runes dulled but intact. A hush fell. John broke it. The horn's last cry restored the wall's wounds, and slowed the walker's advance. But we cannot rely on miracles or sorcery untested. Our next defense is men. He fixed each face, steady as frost-chilled iron. I ride south with Sir Davos and a dozen of the Black Brothers. We will bear letters from Lord Stark and from Maester Aemon, sealed by Pact Sigil and Winterfell's direwolf. Our charge, to summon every southern king, Lord Free City envoy, and Celsail captain willing to fight for Dawn. Stannis cut in. The Iron Throne is mine by right. They will listen if I command. John met his glare. They have not listened yet. If they had, you would not stand north with 2,000 hungry men. We go as joint envoys, not conquerors. The realm bleeds. A golden lion may yield under threat of night, where it never would under threat of stag. He paused. And there is other truth I must reveal. Ned inhaled. John turned to him. The room seemed to shrink. My Lord Father has told me my mother was Lyanna Stark, and my true-born name, Jaehaerys Targaryen. Murmurs rippled. Davos' quill froze, Mance whistled low, Brienne's eyes widened, Melisandre's ruby flared. Stannis' jaw clenched. Ned spoke before thunderheads formed. Robert's rebellion was founded on a lie of abduction. Lyanna bore Rhaegar a son in secret. She made me swear to protect him from Robert's vengeance. I claimed him bastard to shield him. Stannis rose halfway from his chair, brow dark with old wrath. Another dragon whelp. You risked realm on falsehood. Ned's voice cooled to blade edge. Falsehood preserved the boy who now saved your host and your life at this wall. Melisandre's gaze flicked between Ned and John. Dragon's blood. Shadow and light danced closer. I see threads of prophecy tighten. She pressed palm to ruby. It simmered. Azor Ahai may yet rise from ice clothed in wolfskin, Jon exhaled shakily. Whether prophecy or not, Targaryen blood may open doors barred to Stannis Baratheon. Dragons still live across the narrow sea. Daenerys Stormborn commands armies Westeros cannot match. She might heed a cousin's plea to fight darkness, while she scorns usurpers. Mance laughed dryly. So the crow must woo a dragon queen. I'd pay gold dragon to watch that dance. Val elbowed him quiet. Stannis' shoulders relaxed a fraction. If this tale is true, your claim threatens mine. Only if thrones matter more than life, Jon answered. When the Night King's army crosses the south, crowns will melt in shadows. Deal with titles after dawn breaks. Devos' graveled voice interceded. Your Grace, a dragon queen with 3 living dragons, and a prince with claim to both north and south, might prove final lever to unite the realm. He met Stannis' hard stare. We either forge unity or burn alone. Silence weighed heavy until Stannis dipped head. Bare motion, but surrender all the same. Very well. Go south and east, recruit queen and lords. But mind, should victory come, we must settle crowns by law. Else war will bloom anew. Memnorwans. Jon nodded. So witnessed. Ned gripped the horn. I ride for Winterfell tomorrow with Mira Hodor and 10 Crannog scouts. Bran's visions hint at betrayal along the Weeping Water. Bolton and Greyjoy may strike in concert. We shall not present soft belly. He slid the horn across to Jon. Guard this. Its next use may shape the world again. Jon accepted, cradling bone like fragile newborn. Brienne, Ned said. You shadow him until he boards ship at White Harbor. I trust only your blade at his back. She bowed. I will not fail. Stannis drummed gauntleted fingers. Then council adjourns. Feed your men. Repair the wall. Pray to whatever gods will listen. Snow thickened through the night. Candies of white building along every branch. Yet Ned rode out at first gray light. Hodor led a wain laden with obsidian, hemp ropes, and crates of dragonglass-tipped javelins, hammered by Timon Barda's apprentices. Mira scouted ahead. Frog spear reversed like staff for walking. Benjen escorted them as far as the larch grove south of Queenscrown, where he veered east to rally additional rangers for the coastal watch. They made swift time, the neck's slushy paths frozen firm by new frost. On day 3 the sky cleared. Thin sun glittering on rime-coated cattails. Just as they reached the Illwater Ford, across the ice-clogged stream smoke curled from half-burnt farmsteads. Ned's gut twisted. Hodor halted the wain. Mira crouched, fingers brushing snow-hidden tracks. Ironborn raiding party, a score at least. Sigil of red skeletal hand. House Harlaw perhaps, or Botley's Reavers. Ned unslung spyglass. Beyond a stand of bare ash trees a small village smoldered. Snow dappled with crimson. He counted 4 fallen children, 2 women. No men. Likely taken or slain north of the ridge. His knuckles tightened on ice's hilt, but the raiders were gone hours earlier. They crossed the ford carefully. Ned knelt before the dead, lips framing the old words. That you may tremble not in the cold halls of the kings of winter. Mira helped stack stones for cairns while Hodor hummed low. They resumed north, hearts heavier. That night camped beneath moss-bearded oaks. Ned sat apart with parchment from Bran. Ink smeared by Bran's trembling hand. But message clear. Ravens had sighted flayed corpses hung beside the King's Road near Barrowton. Bolton's silent threat. Ned folded note, staring into embers until sparks burned tears into memory of Theon's betrayal. Robb's dogged optimism. Caitlyn's soft warnings. Winter's weight pressed, yet he would not yield. 2 dawns later, they topped the ridge south of the winter town. Smoke rose in familiar tendrils from smithies. The shattered watchtower scaffolding glinted, mid-repair. Children sledded down hillside banks, giggling. A warmth bloomed in Ned's chest stronger than any hearth. The gates yawned open. Bran awaited upon Hodor's old wicker throne at Courtyard's lip, flanked by Arya, Rickon, and the direwolves, Summer Shaggy Dog, and newly returned Grey Wind. fur streaked with soot from recent battles. Bran's sightless eyes tilted skyward, though he turned precisely to Ned's hoofbeats the instant they crossed ice-etched archway. Hodor rumbled contented. "Hodor." And Bran laughed. A sound rare and bright. Ned dismounted, folding sun against furs. Bran's voice carried moss-cool depth. "The roots told me the horns cry. They sing still. And my ears ring still," Ned joked softly, drawing laughter from Rickon tumbling through snowdrifts. Arya flung herself into Ned's arms too, muddy boots leaving prints on his cloak. She whispered conspiratorially, "I'm training him," nodding to Rickon, who brandished wooden blade at a startled guard. "Then spare the guardhouse roof," Ned said. "We need not rebuild twice." She grinned, unfazed. In the great hall, rebuilt hearths chased drafts to rafters. Banners of all northern houses stitched from patchwork hung beside charred originals. Supper smelled of leek stew, boar sausage, and sourdough. Glover men reported Deepwood Mott secure. Mormont Raven announced Lady Meg on march with 6 longships. Wayman Manderley's envoy delivered barrels of smoked eel and, bless him, 2 casks of arbor gold. But under the hum of good tidings lay anxious strings. Greyjoy sails at White Knife Delta. Bolton levies moving south of Barrowlands. A Lannister envoy seen crossing Trident with black and red wyvern flag of House Blackfire. Rumored Sellsword sworn to Casterly Rock. War brewed. That evening Ned summoned house captains to Solar. Tallheart, Serwyn, Glover, Hornwood, Riswell, Dustin. Bran presided, though he let Ned voice the long plan. Raise levy of 5,000 to hold Moat Cailin. Dispatch 2,000 to White Harbor to deter Ironborn. And send riders to Tully encampments along the Red Fork with proof of Ned's return. Lady Barbary Dustin challenged quietly. "Bolton has 3,500 Dreadfort cutthroats. If he marches hard, he may slip past Moat Cailin while our backs guard the coast." Ned leaned over Table's candlelight. "Moat Cailin cannot be outflanked. If Roose bypasses, he starves. We hold straits." Besides, his mouth tight. "Bolton will look north once he hears I live." He thumped knuckle on Winterfell's marker. "Let him come home to hungry wolves." On the 12th day after Ned's return, ravens brought simultaneous storms. First, Joan's convoy reached White Harbor safely, but fleets of Ironborn clustered off Breakwater Point, blockading harbor mouth. Wyman Manderley mustered every fishing cog for ramming duty, yet numbers favored Greyjoy 8-1. Second, Robb Stark rode from Moat Cailin. Bolton banners sighted south bank of Fever River. The Leech Lord himself led, flayed man's standard dripping freshly stripped hides. Third, a smaller parchment sealed by Gold Lion, Cersei Lannister's hand. Its tone serpentine courteous. To Lord Eddard Stark. "We mourn false report of your demise. King Tommen invites you to King's Landing to negotiate lasting peace. House Lannister guarantees safe passage." Ned read line twice. Hand steady, heart spitting sparks. Peace cloaked in crimson claws. He passed scroll to Bran. Bran's blind gaze scanned nothing, yet he touched script with fingertips, closing eyes. "Gold weeps," he murmured. "A mother warns of daughter's leash around her own neck." He shook head. Lioness cornered. Ned addressed council that night. Lannister gold buys swords, while Ironborn cut supply lines. Bolton advances. 3 jaws of Wolftrap Titan. He unrolled a fresh map. "We cannot fight separate wars. We choose field." Captain Robert Glover slammed fist. "Moat Cailin stands. We draw Bolton there, crush him." "Then?" Lady Meg Mormont rebutted. "If Ironborn choke White Harbor, our grain rots at dock. Bears cannot feed mainland." Hodor loomed silently, but nodding every time Bran's face tightened, signaling tension. Mira suggested, "Let River fight the Kraken. Open the White Knife's floodgates at first spring thaw. Swamped longships, broken masts." Wyman's envoy vouched for dams upstream still intact, since Brandon the Boastful's era data. Barbary Dustin proposed diversion. lure Greyjoy inland with promise of treasures stored at Barrowton, where mounted spearwives could trap them in bog pits. Arguments swirled until Bran lifted hand. Hall quieted reverently. "Threads weave," he said. "Snow fights storm. Water drowns iron. Ice swallows leech." He looked toward Ned. "Father, Robb expects specters on South Bank, but none across Causeway. Send silent wolves tonight. Flank Bolton before dawn fog, cut head, break Levy's spirit." Ned absorbed. "We'll ride in 2 hours. Hornwood Light Horse, Risewell Lancers, Spearwives, 20 Crannog Scouts. Strike before Roos's camp sets. Grey wind will guide." He sheathed ice, coppery firelight dancing. Arya's voice shot from shadows near hearth. "I'm going too." Ned half smiled. "Is there a wall left in this castle you have not climbed?" She didn't blink. He sighed. "Very well. Behind scouts only. You carry messages." She grinned fierce. Moonless sky cloaked vanguard as they skirted barrow mounds dotting windswept heath. Fog rolled off warm river meeting hard frost. Swirling around horses hock deep. Ned rode at point. Grey wind trotting ahead, nose twitching. Scouts signaled. Owl hoots, rabbit squeaks, mapping sentry lines. Bolton camp, spread along river flats. Hundreds of leather tents. Torch rows, bear pit trenches. Leech Lord's command pavilion stood near hillock, crowned by gallows, where 3 flayed corpses still dripped. Ned gestured. Hornwood outriders peeled east to sever pickets. Risewell Lancers formed silent wedge. Crannog men melted into sedge to cut tether ropes of Bolton horse lines. Ned inhaled frigid air tasting of iron and fear. Grey wind's deep growl signaled ready. Ned drew ice. "Winterfell," he roared, spurring down slope. 20 Lancers thundered behind, hooves muffled by peat, until final beats. They crashed into outer sentry ring. Bolton guards barely raised shields before spears cut them open. Hornwood knives flashed. Slit tent cords. Canvas collapsed on drowsing soldiers. Risewell riders skewered men stumbling half-armed. Ned rode straight for hillock. Grey wind leaped rope pit, latched onto throat of a flare sergeant. Ned split 2 more with ice, blood mist steaming. He vaulted from saddle. Sprinted up incline. Roose Bolton emerged from pavilion wearing thin leather cuirass over quilted black, heart-flayed sigil glistening. Eyes pale, emotionless as frost. He held a slender dirk dripstone with poison gleam. "Stark," he murmured, almost gentle. "You were supposed to be headless." "Swords have sharp memories," Ned answered. Bolton shrugged. "Yet honor dulls them." He flicked dagger toward Ned's chest, quick as adder. Ned pivoted. Steel glanced off gorget, hissed through cloak. Roose lunged, dirk reversed. Ned parried with crossguard, hooked, twisted. Dagger flew. Bolton sidestepped, drawing second blade. Not steel, but slim glassy shard of ice. Cold bit Ned's wrist when blade clashed. Roose smiled thinly. A gift from a pale walker, for services rendered. Fury flared. Ned hammered ice downward. Valyrian steel shattered the ice blade in explosion of shards, driving Bolton to knees. Ned's pommel cracked cheekbone. Roose's mask of calm fractured. He found lip curling in rage, or was it fear? "Yield," Ned commanded. Bolton spat pink. Better Kingslayer than Wolf's dog. He drew hidden stiletto, plunged for Ned's thigh. Grey wind intercepted, jaws clamping on arm. Roose screamed once. Ned kicked him onto back, ice's width across throat. Flaming arrow arced overhead from frantic Bolton bowmen, tents ignited. Lancers corralled survivors. Hornwood women piled flayed banners, torched them. Dawn's first coral blush touched clouds. Roose whispered, "The North deserves flaying. For kneeling to kneelers." Ned's glare hardened. "The North remembers." He rammed hilt, knocking Bolton unconscious. Hornwood captain bound him in shackles heated red from tent flames. Flesh sizzled. Smell sickened Ned, yet war wrote its own stench. By sunrise, Bolton host lay broken. 800 dead, 600 surrendered, the rest fled disarmed into barrow mists. Ned ordered prisoners marched under guard to Winterfell dungeons. Wounded tended fairly. Northmen still. Roose was trussed in iron cage atop Wain. Outside, Arya carved strip of leather shaped like flayed man, tossed it into fire with satisfied smirk. As Winterfell celebrated victory, new ravens arrived. White Harbor. Ironborn blockade shattered when upstream dams burst, torrent destroying 60 longships, their crews scattered for wolves. Wyman lifted sails for Jon's convoy, now eastbound to Gulltown where Pentoshi Galley awaited to carry them across narrow sea. From River Run, Lord Edmure repelled Blackfire sellswards, but lost 2 keeps. He begged Winterfell's swift aid, lest Frey loyalists reopen the Twins' gates. From King's Landing, an unsigned vellum half-burned at edges. The Golden Lion denies your northern pact, but cracks within walls widen. Expect a friend beneath the dragon pit on the night carrion crows gather. No seal, but handwriting elegant flourished. Perhaps Varys? Or Jaime? And from Old Town, Archmaester Marwyn wrote of glass candles blazing anew, visions of ice wyvern skimming Hightower's spire. Every raven feather seemed weighted with storm. Ned convened council again. Bolton justice postponed. First secure White Harbor grain lines. He named Lady Mage Mormont Castellan of Moat Cailin, placed Risewell spears north along Dreadfort approaches, dispatched Glover riders south to relieve Edmure. He penned letters calling banners of Arryn and Tarth to meet Jon's Congress at Storm's End. Davos' suggestion to gather as neutral ground. Night deepened. Ned sought Bran beneath Hearttree. Snow drifted greenish under lanterns hung among red leaves. Bran's eyes white, body slack, soul weaving in roots. Ned waited. When Bran returned, his breath cast faint frost. The Night King carved a new body from Ice Gorge. Dragon grows near full. Ned's heart stilled. How long? When blue moon rises bright as skyfire. But father. Another dragon flies not far behind. Its wings beat a fire and chain. Menshadorau. A shiver crawled Ned's spine. Dragon Queen's arrival, or something darker. Then we must hurry dawn. Bran's gaze became distant seam of ages. The old gods whisper. The lone wolf dies but the pack survives. We are pack. North, south, dragon, wolf, stag, bear, kraken. All must howl together. Ned knelt, kissed Bran's brow. Then we will howl loud enough to wake gods, and bury the night for good. He rose, staring up at whispering red leaves dancing against frosted stars. Snowflakes landed gentle on scar arch of the Hearttree's face, melting like tears of blood. In that living cathedral of silence, Ned Stark, who had died once and walked again, vowed silently to weave every thread of frost and fire into one unbroken tapestry, or see the world unraveled under endless night. Behind him, Winterfell's towers glowed warm with torchlight. Beyond them the north breathed, wounded but unbowed, its rivers muffled under ice, its pines creaking old songs. Far to the south, a galley's sails filled with night wind, carrying a young man who bore 2 names, and the cracked horn whose next cry might summon doom or deliverance. And in the blackest reach of the true north, the Night King listened to winds that no man could hear, studying the fissured emptiness where once wisdom beyond death had slumbered, now disturbed by mortal audacity. The game of dawn and dusk had entered its final board. White ravens would fly, swords of obsidian would gleam, and the heart of winter, older than memory, older than bones, prepared to beat once more. In the hush beneath the weirwood branches, Ned heard the faintest echo of the horn again. A promise, a warning, a challenge. He did not know which, but he placed his hand upon the tree's cold trunk, closed his eyes, and whispered to the roots, to Lyanna's memory, to the nameless gods of ice and sky, "Let the night come. We will meet it together."